Chapter 642. In the sky. A beam of sword light suddenly streaked across the space and approached Chu Fengmian in an instant. The sword light was extremely sharp, as if it was going to cut everything in front of it. The sword light almost instantly arrived in front of Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian stood in place, as if he had not reacted and was still in a daze. Seeing this, Sikong Hong sneered in his heart. His sword light was something that even those geniuses who had survived the tribulation of life and death could not resist. Moreover, he was going all out to deal with a warrior in the divine power realm. He could already see the next moment, when Chu Fengmian was killed by the sword light without being able to fight back. With this speed, even if Han Yueli wanted to save him now, it would be impossible. Child's play. When the sword light was only a short distance away from Chu Fengmian said indifferently. All of a sudden, Chu Fengmian waved his hand and made a grabbing motion. The sword light was caught by Chu Fengmian. The sharp sword light kept cutting Chu Fengmian's hand, but there was no wound on his hand. It was as if the sword light could not hurt Chu Fengmian. Bam! As Chu Fengmian exerted force in his hand, the sword light was directly crushed by Chu Fengmian's hand. The surrounding people who saw this scene were stunned, as if they could not believe that Chu Fengmian was now so powerful. Especially Elder Bingley, who looked as if she had seen a ghost. She had guessed Chu Fengmian's strength, but she did not expect Chu Fengmian to be able to do this. He took the sword light of a sword cultivator with his bare hands. This was simply an act of madness to the extreme. Moreover, Sikong Hong was not an ordinary sword cultivator, but a real genius on the list of top 100 talents. Now, his sword light was directly taken by Chu Fengmian. Sikong Hong was also stunned, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. However, he looked as calm as ever. What a powerful physical body! To be able to receive my sword, it seems like your physical body has indeed reached an unbelievable level. However, with just this physical body, it's not enough to contend against me. No matter how strong your body is, I don't believe that it can be stronger than my sword. With a thought, the sword in Sikong Hong's hand disappeared. Instead, another sword suddenly appeared in his hand. However, the power of this sword was completely different from the previous one. The sword in Sikong Hong's hand earlier could only be considered as an ordinary earth-grade spiritual weapon. However, the sword in his hand now emitted the aura of a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. The moment the spiritual sword was unsheathed, the sharp sword light seemed to want to cut Chu Fengmian into pieces. The Sikong Daluo sword. This is the Sikong family's treasure. When Elder Bingley saw the sword, she turned pale with fright. Why is this sword in your hands? The Sikong Daluo sword was a heaven-grade spirit artifact. A heaven-grade spirit artifact could play a decisive role in a battle between life and death realm expert. Sikong Hong's strength was above Chu Fengmian's. Now that he had the Sikong Daluo sword, Chu Fengmian had no chance of defeating Sikong Hong. Sikong Jingsheng said with a cold smile. Elder Bingley, there's no need to be alarmed. The Sikong Daluo sword has always been controlled by the patriarch of our Sikong family. Now that my grandson has become the next patriarch of the Sikong family, it's normal for the Sikong Daluo sword to be in my grandson's hands. Sikong Jingsheng was extremely confident in this battle. He did not think that Chu Fengmian, who was not even on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region, could contend against Sikong Hong. In his opinion, Chu Fengmian would be defeated in less than 3 moves. It was even very likely that he would die. Brat, don't you have the confidence to fight me because you have the strength of your physical body? Now, let's see if your physical body is stronger or if my sword is sharper. Sikong Hong looked at Chu Fengmian and sneered. If you kneel down and admit defeat, I can spare your life and let you go, Sikong Hong said to Chu Fengmian. Sikong Hong said to Chu Fengmian. His tone sounded as if he was giving alms to someone. Now that the Sikong Daluo sword was out, Sikong Hong felt that he had completely subdued Chu Fengmian. No matter how strong a person's physical body was, it was impossible to contend against a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. In his opinion, Chu Fengmian was just an ant that he could toy with however he wanted. However, before he could finish his words, Chu Fengmian's face revealed a mocking smile. This sword is a good sword, but the person who uses it is a good-for-nothing. This sword is useless in your hands. Give it to me. Chu Fengmian sneered and suddenly grabbed at Sikong Hong. He wanted to snatch the sword away from Sikong Hong. You want to snatch the sword? You're courting death. Sikong Hong roared. The sword in his hand suddenly fell. When the sword fell, it was enough to split into thousands of streaks of sword qi that slashed at Chu Fengmian at the same time. Sikong Hong's swordsmanship could already be considered pretty good. In the northern region, he was almost the strongest among the warriors of the same realm. Given his aptitude, it was very likely that he would become an extremely terrifying sword Dao grandmaster in the future. Unfortunately, the person Sikong Hong had encountered was Chu Fengmian. Since he had provoked Chu Fengmian, he had no future. Although Sikong Hong's swordsmanship was good, in Chu Fengmian's opinion, it was full of flaws. Dragon! Suddenly, dragon blood condensed on Chu Fengmian's right hand and transformed into a huge dragon claw. Streaks of sword qi suddenly condensed at the tips of the 5 fingers of the dragon claw. He grabbed at the air. The thousands of streaks of sword qi in the sky were shattered layer by this grab. Not a single one of them was left behind. Chu Fengmian had actually broken this sword attack so easily. Sikong Hong's heaven-grade spiritual weapon, which had condensed sword intent, was completely dissipated by Chu Fengmian's grab. What? You can actually break my swordsmanship? How is that possible? Sikong Hong's face suddenly changed. He was no longer as calm as before. Instead, his face faintly revealed a bit of paleness. Whether it was his swordsmanship or his sword, they were almost invulnerable in the same level. But now Chu Fengmian had broken it so easily. Moreover, Chu Fengmian did not break it by force at all. Instead, he directly found the flaw in his swordsmanship and completely defeated it. In terms of swordsmanship, Sikong Hong was actually defeated. Chapter 643. Sikong Hong's face was no longer as confident and playful as before. Instead, it was extremely solemn. His swordsmanship had never been broken by anyone in the same realm. After all, the Sikong family was a martial arts family. His understanding of swordsmanship was naturally superior to other martial artists. He had never dreamed that his swordsmanship would be broken. How powerful, transforming his finger into a sword. This sword technique is too mysterious. Where did he learn such a profound sword technique from? Haha, I don't know how to use it. Elder Isley was also startled. Although she was not a sword cultivator, she knew many sword masters. However, even sword masters, or even old antiques who had stepped onto the life and death steps, might not necessarily have such swordsmanship. Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship had to be far more mysterious than Sikong Hong's to be able to break Sikong Hong's swordsmanship. Sikong Hong's swordsmanship was enough to be praised in the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. He was one of the best among the younger generation. However, he had been easily surpassed by someone. Han Yueli explained. Master, he had previously obtained the inheritance of Sage Beimang from the All Saints Hall. The inheritance of Sage Beimang. Han Yueli's words shocked Elder Bingley. Sage Beimang was the founder of the Beimang Academy. It was rumored that Sage Beimang was indeed an extremely powerful sword cultivator. No wonder. It was enough to explain why Chu Fengmian had such powerful swordsmanship after obtaining the inheritance of Sage Beimang. Good, you're very good. Sikong Hong looked at Chu Fengmian and his expression became much more serious as he spoke coldly. A divine power realm martial artist is actually able to break my swordsmanship. You're qualified for me to take you seriously. It's your honor to be defeated by my full strength. Void-breaking sword. Sikong Hong's sword moved again. 1,000-meter-long sword chi suddenly condensed and blasted toward Chu Fengmian. There was no longer any fancy technique. All it had was an incomparably domineering power. Sikong Hong was a genius after all. After exchanging blows with Chu Fengmian, he knew that Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship had even surpassed his. He could not gain any advantage in swordsmanship against Chu Fengmian. Although Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship was mysterious, his strength was still in the divine power realm. If he could not win with his swordsmanship, he could only compete with his strength. He was a life-and-death realm martial artist. He did not believe that he could not beat Chu Fengmian. No matter how exquisite Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship was, it was meaningless against such a sword that was purely based on strength. He could only resist it with brute force. Strength? Do you think you're a match for me in terms of strength? Seeing Sikong Hong's actions, Chu Fengmian sneered. With a single thought, the battle dragon claw suddenly materialized in the sky and slammed down. When he looked, he saw a scene Chu Fengmian. His swordsmanship clashed with Chu Fengmian's battle dragon claw in the sky. The battle dragon claw shook and Sikong Hong's swordsmanship was shattered. The 1,000-meter-long sword chi was forcibly shattered. The force of the backlash caused Sikong Hong's face to surge with blood, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. This is impossible. What kind of strength is this? I lost in a contest of strength. Sikong Hong roared inwardly. He had lost to Chu Fengmian in a contest of swordsmanship. Now, he lost again in a contest of strength. He was a life-and-death realm martial artist. How could he lose so miserably against a divine power realm martial artist like Chu Fengmian? Not even in his wildest dreams could he have imagined such a scene. However, it was not over yet. After breaking Sikong Hong's swordsmanship, Chu Fengmian suddenly moved. His figure was unbelievably fast. Before Sikong Hong could react, he had already arrived in front of him. This sword will only collect dust in your hands. Hand it over. Chu Fengmian's hand grabbed at the Sikong Daluo sword. Sikong Hong turned pale with fright. He did not expect Chu Fengmian to be so fast. His feet moved, and he hurriedly retreated. However, Chu Fengmian was even faster than him. His hand was already grabbing at Sikong Hong. Sikong Hong let out a miserable scream. The Sikong Daluo sword had been snatched away by Chu Fengmian and landed in his hand. Kneel down. Chu Fengmian raised his hand and slowly lowered it. It contained an extremely powerful pressure that directly pressed down on Sikong Hong's body. Chu Fengmian's strength was so great that Sikong Hong was no match for him even if he used all his strength. Moreover, the sword in his hand had already been taken away by Chu Fengmian. The most important thing in a sword cultivator's life was the sword in his hand. It was already a great humiliation for Sikong Hong to have his sword taken away by Chu Fengmian. Ah! Following a miserable scream, Sikong Hong's body fell from the sky with a bang. His knees went soft and he knelt on the ground. Sikong Hong's face was extremely pale. Now that he had been defeated and knelt on the ground, it was a great humiliation. He almost fainted from anger. The scene was silent. No one spoke. They just stared blankly at the scene. Sikong Hong had been defeated by Chu Fengmian and was now kneeling on the ground. Die, brat! A furious roar was heard all of a sudden. The ancestor of the Sikong family, Sikong Jingsheng, was furious to the extreme when he saw Sikong Hong being defeated by Chu Fengmian and kneeling on the ground. When had the Sikong family ever suffered such humiliation? Sikong Jingsheng abruptly threw out a palm strike towards Chu Fengmian. This palm strike contained boundless killing intent, as if he wanted to kill Chu Fengmian with this strike. Brother Sikong, please calm down. Elder Bingley suddenly came to her senses. She waved her hand and tried to stop Sikong Jingsheng. Elder Bingley, this brat has gone too far. Making a member of the Sikong family kneel is a humiliation to the Sikong family. Xikong Jingsheng looked coldly at Elder Bingley and shouted angrily. Today, your Northern Mang Academy must hand over this news to the Xikong family. Our Xikong family must get an explanation. Brother Xikong, this is a matter between the younger generation. As an elder, it's not good for you to get involved. How about this? My name is Chu Fengmian. Let Xikong Hong go and today's matter will be written off. How about it? Chapter 644. Elder Bingley didn't expect Chu Fengmian to be so ruthless. In front of Xikong Jingsheng, he had actually snatched away Xikong Hong's sword and made him kneel on the ground. This sort of humiliation wasn't just a loss of face for Xikong Hong alone, it was a direct humiliation for the entire Xikong clan. If Xikong family could endure this kind of humiliation, they wouldn't be worthy of being called a martial arts family. No. Today's matter can't be resolved so easily. Xikong Jingsheng was incomparably tyrannical as he roared madly like a roaring lion. This kid must be handed over to our Xikong family to deal with. If you don't give us an explanation, don't even think about ending today's matter well. Explanation? What explanation? This trash challenged me to a duel and was defeated by me. I snatched his sword just to prevent him from provoking people he shouldn't provoke. Me sparing his life is already a great kindness to your Xikong family. You still want me to give you an explanation? Chu Fengmian said arrogantly. An old fellow dares to take advantage of his seniority. A mere Xikong family dares to provoke me. From now on, there's no need for Xikong family to exist. If you don't scram, I'll make you kneel here and accompany this trash. Arrogant. Xikong Jingsheng couldn't bear Chu Fengmian's words anymore. His spiritual energy completely erupted, and the strength of a peak life and death realm expert was fully displayed. Boundless sword intent revolved around Xikong Jingsheng's body. Brat, when you kowtowed and admitted your mistake, this old man could still let you off since you're a junior. However, since you're so arrogant today will be the day you die. Even the people from the North Sea Academy won't be able to protect you today. Xikong Jingsheng roared loudly. Is that so? Old man, I think your lifespan is nearing its end and you're courting death. However, with your aptitude, you won't have any hope of stepping onto the life and death steps in your lifetime. It's fine even if you die 2 years earlier. Chu Fengmian looked at Xikong Jingsheng and said without any trace of politeness. An old man who hasn't even transcended life and death dares to talk big in front of me? Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Elder Isley felt dizzy. Those words were truly too arrogant. This was especially true as Xikong Jingsheng was nearing the end of his lifespan. No one would dare to mention such a thing before him. Now, Chu Fengmian's words had simply offended Xikong Jingsheng. Chu Fengmian, hurry up and apologize. Brother Xikong is a senior after all. If you apologize, this matter can still be resolved. Elder Isley hurriedly shouted. She was indebted to Xikong Jingsheng. Even if Xikong Jingsheng was being overbearing right now, it would not be appropriate for her to help Chu Fengmian take care of him. Elder Isley, don't mind him. He's just an old man. I'll send him to kneel on the ground like Xikong Hong. Chu Fengmian said casually. Such a useless old man, I don't even put him in my eyes. Damn it. Little bastard. Give me your life. Today, I will use your blood to wash away the shame of our Xikong family. Xikong Jingsheng angrily roared and suddenly burst forth. He condensed energy into a sword in his hand and directly slashed towards Chu Fengmian. How could Xikong Jingsheng endure Chu Fengmian calling him an old man? A figure like Xikong Jingsheng was a respected expert no matter where he went. When had he ever been looked down upon by a kid in the divine force realm? Do you think that you can contend against this old man just because of some fortuitous encounters? What a joke. I'll let you see what a true sword technique is. When Xikong Jingsheng slashed out with his sword, it seemed as if the heavens and earth were about to be cut apart. With one slash, the heavens and earth split apart. The sky-splitting sword technique. This is the sky-splitting sword technique of the Sikong family. It's a sword technique comparable to a Heaven Realm martial technique, the ultimate technique of the Sikong family. Elder Isley was shocked. Even if she had advanced to the life-shattering realm, it would be incomparably troublesome for her to block the sky-splitting sword technique. Before she had advanced, Elder Bingley did not even have the confidence to block this sword strike. Even peak life and death realm experts couldn't block it. Now, Chu Fengmian was just a divine force realm martial artist. How could he block it? Kid die. The sky-splitting sword technique descended from the sky and instantly slashed towards Chu Fengmian. It wanted to directly cut Chu Fengmian's body in half. This sword, which could even tear apart the sky, slashed towards Chu Fengmian. Sikong Jingsheng attacked in anger. He didn't hold back in the slightest. He wanted to directly kill Chu Fengmian. You have the nerve to be arrogant in front of me with just this sword technique? Forget it, I'll let you see what a true sword technique is. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted. Holding the Sikong Daluo sword, he suddenly slashed down. As the sword fell, it immediately turned into countless sword qi in the air, forming an incomparably huge net. A huge net suddenly enveloped over. The sky-splitting sword technique was directly trapped by the sword qi net. It's meaningless. You want to block the sky-splitting sword technique with just this low-level sword technique of yours? Break for me. Sikong Jingsheng's face revealed a somewhat sinister smile as he coldly snorted. The power of the heaven-splitting sword suddenly grew stronger. It struggled within the sword energy net as if it was about to break free at any moment. Die. Rumble. The sky-splitting sword technique collided with the sword qi net. This collision caused the entire mountain to tremble. Elder Isley waved her hand and used her supreme divine power to gradually calm the mountain. You want to break my sword technique? Wishful thinking. How can you be a sword cultivator with this insignificant sword technique? You're already so old, yet you're still using this kind of sword technique. You've wasted all your time. Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed deep disdain. You don't have the strength, yet you still dare to be arrogant? While speaking, Chu Fengmian's mind suddenly moved. The sword qi net was completely activated by Chu Fengmian's mind. The sword qi within it suddenly became incomparably sharp. Crack! The sky-splitting sword technique was completely surrounded. Suddenly, countless cracks appeared on its surface. In the next moment, the sky-splitting sword technique was suddenly filled with countless cracks and was on the verge of shattering. If Sikong Jingsheng's strength had reached the life-shatter realm, Chu Fengmian would have a hard time dealing with him. But a peak life and death sword cultivator? In terms of sword Dao, no one could surpass Chu Fengmian. Even if Sikong Jingsheng's sword Dao comprehension was 100 times more profound than Chu Fengmian's, he still wouldn't be Chu Fengmian's match. Chapter 645. Break. Chu Fengmian indifferently spat out a single word. The sky-splitting sword was completely shattered. Kacha! With a loud sound, the sky-splitting sword was completely shattered. The force of the recoil landed on Sikong Jingsheng's body, sending his body flying. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out. Sikong Jingsheng's body trembled, his heart filled with horror. How is this possible? Sikong Jingsheng was the old ancestor of the Sikong family, a peak life and death expert. He was only a step away from surpassing life and death and stepping onto the life and death step. In the entire northern region, he could be regarded as a big shot who was ranked at the top. But now, he was defeated by a junior like Chu Fengmian, a junior who was only at the divine power realm. In terms of sword technique, he wasn't even Chu Fengmian's opponent. This, Elder Bingley was also dumbfounded, as if she couldn't believe the scene before her eyes. Sikong Jingsheng was actually defeated. In terms of sword technique, he was actually defeated. Sword technique was the foundation of the Sikong family. The Sikong family was powerful because of the sword technique passed down in their bloodline, allowing them to be called a martial arts family. Xikong Jingsheng didn't show any mercy in the previous sword technique. He even released all the sword techniques of his family. But now, it was easily neutralized by Chu Fengmian. Unless one witnessed it with their own eyes, no one would believe it even if a rumor spread. Defeating a peak life and death expert at the divine power realm, even an innate divine body couldn't do this. What kind of fortuitous encounter did he have to be able to do this? Such a figure actually appeared in our Northern Mang Academy. Elder Bingley muttered to herself in a daze. When she saw Han Yueli, Elder Bingley thought that Han Yueli was the disciple with the highest aptitude in the entire Northern Mang Academy. But now, the strength displayed by Chu Fengmian was even stronger than Han Yueli. What was even more shocking was that Chu Fengmian was only at the peak of the divine power realm. He hadn't even passed the life and death tribulation. Once a venerated martial artist survived a life or death tribulation, his strength would increase by several times, or even dozens of times. Right now, Chu Fengmian's strength was enough to defeat Xikong Jingsheng, who was at the peak of life and death realm. If Chu Fengmian managed to survive the great calamity of life and death, how much would his strength soar? Surpassing life and death realm? Or even step onto the steps of life and death and transcend life and death? Elder Isley didn't even dare to imagine it. Xikong Jingsheng? The ancestor of the Xikong clan? This Chu gave you a chance. Since you didn't leave when I told you to, don't even think about leaving now. Chu Fengmian said coldly as he looked at Xikong Jingsheng, who was vomiting blood repeatedly. Kneel down and accompany your grandson. Boom. Chu Fengmian's large hand suddenly swung down and a huge pressure pressed down on Xikong Jingsheng's body. No matter how much Xikong Jingsheng struggled, he couldn't escape from Chu Fengmian's palm. Impossible. How can a mere divine force realm cultivator suppress me? How can he defeat me? Impossible. I'm an invincible ancestor. I'll never lose. Xikong Jingsheng roared crazily and struggled with all his might, as if he wanted to break free from Chu Fengmian's suppression. However, facing Xikong Jingsheng's struggle, Chu Fengmian only sneered. With a thought, the battle dragon bloodline in his body was fully activated, causing the suppressive power to become even more terrifying. The aura on Chu Fengmian's body turned into 4 incomparably huge ancient battle dragons. They suddenly descended from the sky and directly suppressed Xikong Jingsheng. The power of the 4 primordial battle dragons suppressed Xikong Jingsheng and almost tore his body apart. Xikong Jingsheng's body trembled unceasingly. He used all his strength to resist Chu Fengmian's suppression, but it was futile. No! Xikong Jingsheng roared loudly. Waves of spiritual energy condensed to the extreme, making a final resistance. You still want to resist? Kneel down. Chu Fengmian coldly said. With a grab of his hand, the last bit of spiritual energy that Xikong Jingsheng had condensed was shattered. In an instant, Xikong Jingsheng's defense was completely broken. Chu Fengmian's pressure directly pressed on Xikong Jingsheng's body. In the blink of an eye, Xikong Jingsheng's body seemed to have lost all strength. His knees went soft. Just like Xikong Hong, he directly knelt on the ground beside Xikong Hong. The pair of grandfather and grandson of the Xikong family were now both defeated by Chu Fengmian and kneeling before him. The Xikong family is a martial arts family. Hand over your wealth. Chu Fengmian looked at Xikong Jingsheng and Xikong Hong, who were kneeling on the ground. His big hand moved and directly grabbed the two of them. The two of them seemed to want to resist. However, they were now kneeling on the ground, suppressed by Chu Fengmian's power. They had no chance to resist even if they wanted to. Chu Fengmian's right hand made a grabbing motion and 2 empty rings fell into his hand. Chu Fengmian opened them and looked inside. There were countless fortuitous encounters and innumerable wealth. After all, the Xikong family was a martial arts family. As the ancestor of the Xikong family, Xikong Jingsheng's wealth was simply astonishing. He had at least tens of billions of spiritual stones. That's right. Take this wealth as my compensation. As for the two of you, kneel here for 7 days and 7 nights. Treat it as a warning to others that those who dare to provoke me, Chu Fengmian, will face the consequences. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted and directly ignored the two of them and walked back. Elder Isley, these two people will kneel on the mountain peak first. If you feel that they are an eyesore, I can also move them to another place. Chu Fengmian returned and saw that Elder Isley was still in shock. He smiled and said, "These two people came to provoke me. It's time to teach them a lesson." Chu Fengmian, you really suppressed the two of them just like that? Elder Isley seemed to be in disbelief. The fact that Sikong Hong had been suppressed and forced to kneel had already exceeded Elder Bing Li's expectations. However, it wasn't enough to shock her. What truly shocked her was the next scene. Sikong Jingsheng had been defeated and suppressed by Chu Fengmian. Sikong Jingsheng wasn't a weakling. He was a peak life and death expert. A high-level life and death expert could dominate a region in the outside world. Even the ancestor of the Sikong family was suppressed by Sikong Jingsheng. Elder Isley was somewhat apprehensive. Chapter 646. Chu Fengmian, the Sikong family isn't easy to deal with. They have a close relationship with the Kanglin family and the Feng family. Now that you've suppressed Sikong Jingsheng, you've offended them. Elder Bing Li hesitated for a moment and said, "Release them now, and you can still let them die peacefully." Die peacefully? Chu Fengmian glanced at Sikong Jingsheng and Sikong Hong. Sikong Jingsheng and Sikong Hong were now kneeling on the ground, roaring crazily. They were frantically mobilizing their strength, trying to break through Chu Fengmian's seal. Their eyes were looking at Chu Fengmian, as if they couldn't wait to tear Chu Fengmian into pieces. "Even if I release them now, they won't die peacefully. Let them kneel here. As for the Kanglin family and the Feng family, they're just martial arts families. If they dare to cause trouble, they'll also die." Chu Fengmian sneered. Previously, when Chu Fengmian was in the ancient Dragon Emperor cave, he had already fought with the two families. If they dared to cause trouble, Chu Fengmian would also kill them. Out of respect for Elder Bing Li, Chu Fengmian could spare Sikong Jingsheng and Sikong Hong's lives. However, the death penalty was unavoidable, and they couldn't escape punishment. He would let them kneel here for 7 days and 7 nights. 4 people from martial arts families like Sikong Jingsheng and Sikong Hong, kneeling like this was simply an insult. They were born with high status, and each of them was extremely arrogant. Now that Chu Fengmian had shattered their pride, it meant that he had planted an inner demon in their hearts. Now, unless the two of them could break through their inner demons, they would be trapped in it forever. Their strength would not be able to improve for the rest of their lives. Hearing Chu Fengmian's arrogant words, Elder Bing Li wanted to say something. However, when she saw Sikong Jingsheng and Sikong Hong kneeling on the ground, she couldn't say a word. Chu Fengmian's words weren't arrogant, but he really had the ability to do what he said. The Kanglin family and the Feng family had similar strength as the Sikong family. Now that the ancestor of the Sikong family had been defeated by Chu Fengmian, the Kanglin family and the Feng family would probably end up in the same situation if they joined forces to deal with Chu Fengmian. Although Elder Bing Li had some friendship with Sikong Jingsheng, she couldn't say anything now. Chu Fengmian sparing their lives was already giving Elder Bing Li some face. Otherwise, Chu Fengmian would have killed them directly. With Chu Fengmian's personality, it wasn't impossible for him to kill them. "These 2 pieces of trash, let them kneel here and reflect on their actions," Chu Fengmian said calmly. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian changed the topic and said to Elder Isley, "Elder Isley, do you know anything about the martial competition in the Returning Ruins Heaven?" Chu Fengmian suddenly asked. Chu Fengmian only heard a little about Xianbei Saint and then left. Since Xianbei Saint wanted to help Chu Fengmian fight for an opportunity in the academy, they didn't talk much. Chu Fengmian still attached great importance to this martial arts conference. If he wanted to break through now, he would have to go through a new fortuitous encounter. The returning ruins heaven was the ruins of an ancient sect. There were countless fortuitous encounters in it. Chu Fengmian had to enter it and search for fortuitous encounters. Then, he could break through the limit of the divine power realm in one fell swoop, survive the life and death tribulation, and step into the life and death realm. When Chu Fengmian stepped into the life and death realm, he could easily crush martial arts families like Sikong family, Kanglan family, and Feng family. There was no lack of experts in the northern region. With Sikong Hong's strength, he could only rank 35th on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region. The strength of the top few on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region was definitely not weak. Chu Fengmian still wanted to know a thing or two about it. Returning Ruins Heaven? Martial Arts Conference? The Martial Arts Conference to compete for the qualification to the Returning Ruins Heaven is indeed about to start. It seems that you're going to participate, Elder Isley said calmly. She wasn't surprised that Chu Fengmian wanted to participate. After all, as long as one was strong enough, who wouldn't want to enter the Returning Ruins Heaven to search for fortuitous encounters? With Chu Fengmian's current strength, he was indeed qualified to compete. It was normal for Chu Fengmian to want to participate. The Martial Arts Conference this time will still be held in Martial King City, but only the top 10 martial artists in the Martial Arts Conference are qualified to go to the Returning Ruins Heaven. Elder Isley explained. As long as one is a disciple of the major forces in the northern region, he can participate in the Martial Arts Conference. It's not limited to Divine Power Realm martial artists. Many Life and Death Realm martial artists can also participate. For example, some of the core disciples of our North Sea Academy, although they have already reached the Life and Death Realm, they haven't been promoted to the Vice Principal yet. But they can still participate in the martial competition. It can be said that it won't be easy to get into the top 10. Elder Isley glanced at Chu Fengmian and said, "There is no lack of geniuses in the major forces in the northern region. Almost all the disciples on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region will participate in the Martial Arts Conference. With your current strength, it's not difficult to get into the top 10. However, it's a little difficult to get into the top 3. As for getting the first place, it's not possible with your current strength." Elder Isley's words surprised Chu Fengmian a little. With his strength, he could only get into the top 10. It was not easy to get into the top 3? Just now, when Chu Fengmian defeated Sikong Jingsheng, the strength he showed was close to the life and death step. Although it was not as good as the life-breaking realm, which was a realm that transcended life and death, it was enough to defeat Sikong Jingsheng, who was at the peak of the life and death realm. Chu Fengmian's strength was at least half a step into the realm of transcending life and death. Chu Fengmian originally thought that it would not be a problem for him to get the first place in the martial arts conference with his strength. He did not expect that there was someone on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region who could compete with him. Don't be surprised. Many of the people on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region have cultivated for hundreds of years and had countless adventures. You've just arrived at the Beimang Academy, but you have such strength. It's not a problem for you to surpass them in the future. As Elder Isley spoke, her expression suddenly changed slightly, and then she said, "I've already told you, Ellie, about the Martial Arts Conference. The Martial Arts Conference will be held in Martial King City in 7 days. You can talk on the way. I have something to do here, so I have to leave first." After Elder Isley finished speaking, she turned into a stream of light and left in a hurry. Chapter 647. Elder Bingley must have received an order from the higher-ups of the Northern Mang Academy. Chu Fengmian had shown his strength and defeated the Sikong family's ancestor, Sikong Jingsheng. The higher-ups of the academy should have known. That was why they hurriedly called her Elder Bingley. However, Chu Fengmian was not worried that the academy would know. His current strength was enough to protect himself. When Chu Fengmian passed the life and death tribulation, his strength would be enough to transcend life and death. At that time, even if the higher-ups of the Northern Mang Academy came to deal with him, Chu Fengmian would be able to resolve it easily. Let's go to the martial royal city. Chu Fengmian glanced at Han Yueli beside him and said directly. 7 days later, the martial arts conference would begin. Although Chu Fengmian had just gone through a series of battles, he had a divine vein. However, Chu Fengmian had the divine pulse, so the consumption of spiritual power was meaningless to him. If he needed time to rest and reorganize, then he would be in perfect condition. Let's go. Han Yueli also nodded. The two of them immediately turned into streaks of light and left. The martial royal city was a long way away. If they went ahead, they would be able to catch up. The returning ruins heaven would only open once every 3 years. Chu Fengmian did not want to miss this opportunity. If he missed this opportunity, he would have to wait for another 3 years. Chu Fengmian did not have 3 years to waste. The 2 streaks of light left the northern Mang sacred region and turned into a streak of light and entered the void. Although the northern Mang sacred region was extremely secretive, Chu Fengmian now had an identity card and knew the various routes around. Even in the chaotic void, he could find a path in an instant. They returned to the northern region in an instant. The martial royal city was at the northernmost tip of the northern region. The martial royal city did not belong to any faction, but it was jointly protected by countless sects in the northern region. Among them, the Northern Mang Academy also had some power in the martial royal city. Of course, the Earth Demon sect still held a corner of the martial royal city's power. Martial clans like the Sikong family, the Kanglan family, the Feng family, and some second-rate factions all had a part of their power in the city. They operated the martial royal city together. Because of this, the martial imperial city became the place where the returning ruins heaven opened every 3 years. Hence, it developed a martial arts competition. Every 3 years, the martial competition was the ranking of the younger generation of disciples in the northern region. Every year, many amazing geniuses would emerge. This was no longer just a competition for a spot in the returning ruins heaven, but also a representation of the glory of the cultivators. Which genius in the northern region wasn't a proud son of the heavens? Everyone wanted to be number one and suppress the rest. That was why this martial arts conference would attract so many powerhouses to come. In this martial competition, all the disciples you meet may be randomly selected. Therefore, even if you meet a disciple from the Northern Sea Academy, you can't show mercy. Han Yueli explained. The martial battle grand meeting is just like the life and death arena. The fights within it are all life and death battles. Stepping down from the stage is considered a loss. Once one steps down from the stage, one will not be able to kill anyone. However, on the stage, regardless of what methods you have, you can use them all. Thus, no matter who you encounter, you cannot show mercy. Yes. Chu Fengmian nodded. He also knew that in this kind of martial competition, there would be casualties every year. It was almost unavoidable. Only a true life and death battle could determine a cultivator's true strength. Therefore, every battle in the martial competition was a life and death battle. One could kill the other party. At the top, being soft-hearted would only bring disaster to oneself. However, Chu Fengmian didn't care. Given his character, he wasn't soft-hearted. As long as it was an enemy, there was only one outcome in Chu Fengmian's mind, and that was to kill. The martial competition was said to be for a spot in the returning ruins heaven, but in fact, it was also a trial. It was a trial between the disciples of the various sections. No matter how high a cultivator's realm was, he wouldn't become a true powerhouse without experiencing countless life and death battles. The martial competition was an opportunity for everyone to improve the strength of the northern region through the cruel cultivation of venomous insects. It was a cycle of 3 years. Now, the 3 years had come again. While Chu Fengmian was deep in thought, a large mountain range suddenly appeared in front of him. The mountain range was filled with giant trees. At a glance, Chu Fengmian could feel a monstrous demonic aura. This is the Desolate Corpse mountain range. Chu Fengmian observed the surrounding terrain and said, "The Desolate Corpse mountain range used to be a battlefield in the northern region. Countless experts had fallen, and countless demonic beasts had devoured the bloodline of those experts. The place had become a gathering place for demonic beasts. Among them, Chu Fengmian could feel that there were many powerful demon gods. Some of them were even close to transcending life and death. Obviously, they were the ancestors of the demon gods. The Desolate Corpse mountain range is full of danger, but there aren't many treasures in it. It's an extremely barren place. There's no point in entering it. Let's take a detour," Han Yueli said. In the Desolate Corpse mountain range, there was nothing except for the endless demonic beasts. Entering it would be asking for trouble. It's a little late to take a detour now. Chu Fengmian looked ahead and muttered to himself. Han Yueli followed Chu Fengmian's gaze. Suddenly, a black mass appeared in front of them. Like a dark cloud, it flew directly towards Chu Fengmian. However, this speed was definitely not a dark cloud. It contained an extremely terrifying demonic power. A herd of beasts. Han Yueli saw the black mass flying towards them like a dark cloud, and his face slightly changed. This herd of beasts was definitely one of the most troublesome things to encounter in the northern region. Normally, there would be at least 1,000 or 10,000 demonic beasts in a herd. A large herd might even have 100,000 or 1,000,000 demonic beasts. With such a number, even an expert who had transcended life and death might die in it. The herd of beasts in front of them was innumerable. It covered the sky and earth, and turned into a dark cloud. There were at least 100,000 demonic beasts in it. Black Iron Crow? Chu Fengmian spread out his spiritual consciousness and carefully looked at it. He saw that the demonic beast was pitch black, and its feathers emitted a metallic luster. The Black Iron Crow was a kind of wind-controlling realm demonic beast. It came in groups and was not considered strong among the demonic beasts. However, it was extremely troublesome for warriors. Because the Black Iron Crow's feathers were as hard as steel, it was easy for any saint to kill one. However, when the Black Iron Crows appeared, they came in groups of tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands at the same time. They covered the sky and the sun. In addition, the Black Iron Crows were very difficult to kill. Chapter 648. When the Black Iron Crows moved, there would be tens of thousands of them. Even some peak life and death realm experts, or even those who had transcended life and death, would eventually run out of spiritual energy and die after being surrounded by the Black Iron Crows. There was once a great elder of the Northern Mang Academy who had encountered the Black Iron Crows and died. The great elder of the Northern Mang Academy was a peak life and death realm expert. Now that he had encountered the Black Iron Crows, only death awaited him. From this, one could see the terror of the Black Iron Crows. This is a martial artist's escape light? Chu Fengmian looked over. In front of the Black Iron Crows, there were actually a few rays of light in front of the Black Iron Crows. This flock of Black Iron Crows clearly chased all the way here in order to chase these few martial artists. There were a total of 3 people, a white-haired old man, a man, and a woman. The white-haired old man was the strongest, having the strength of a high-level life and death realm expert. As for the man and woman, they had the strength of an ordinary life and death realm expert. The white-haired old man happened to be the one with the heaviest injuries. Under the encirclement of the Black Iron Crows, he was already on the verge of collapsing. These martial artists aren't from our Northern Mang Academy, nor are they from the Earth Demon sect. They should be members of a martial artist family. What should we do? Han Yueli sized up these people and said, "These Black Iron Crows have already noticed us. As long as these Black Iron Crows sense a martial artist's aura, they won't stop until they die. If we leave now, it won't be easy to escape." "Is that so?" Since it won't be easy, let's go over and take a look. Since they aren't enemies, there's no harm in saving them. Chu Fengmian said casually. These black iron crows were a scourge anyway. It would be better to kill them and save these people. Han Yueli heard Chu Fengmian's words and nodded. Rather than taking a detour and being chased by these black iron crows, it would be better to go over now. The two figures instantly disappeared from their original spots and flew towards the black iron crows. Second Elder, what should we do? These black iron crows won't let us go. The young man among the three suddenly unsheathed his blade and killed a black iron crow. However, this also consumed a lot of his spiritual energy. In the pursuit, he had already consumed a lot of spiritual energy and suffered quite a few injuries. Now, it was becoming more and more difficult for him to deal with the black iron crows. If this continues, we'll die at the hands of these black iron crows sooner or later. I didn't expect that passing by this desolate corpse mountain range would actually attract such a group of black iron crows. A look of anxiety appeared on the woman's face. This group of people chatted as they quickly fled. However, the speed of the black iron crows was even faster than their flight light. They had already surrounded them. At a glance, it looked as though there were a few streaks of light bitterly struggling within the pitch-black clouds. I've already informed the clan. They're all in the Martial Royal City. We're not far from the Martial Royal City. We just need to hold on a little longer and we'll be fine, the white-haired elder said in a deep voice. However, his body had already suffered countless injuries. The moment he opened his mouth, the enormous black iron crow, which had reached the demon god realm, crashed into him. Instantly, the spiritual energy that the white-haired elder had gathered was shattered. His body was sent flying and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Second Elder. The young man and woman's faces turned pale when they saw the white-haired elder being sent flying. Without the white-haired elder's help, their defense would have been broken by the black iron crows. Are we going to die here today? The young man's face turned pale. He was about to give up resisting. However, at that moment, two sword lights suddenly descended from the sky. One of the two sword lights contained an extreme amount of power. With one slash, the hundreds of black iron crows in the surrounding area were all killed. As for the other sword light, it was extremely cold. It completely froze a group of black iron crows in the distance. This is... The young man was stunned for a moment before he exclaimed in joy. I don't know who did it. I'm Gong Yang Li. This is my sister, Gong Yang Kai. This is the second elder of the Gong Yang family, Gong Yang Zong. Since you've helped us, the Gong Yang family will definitely repay you. They're from the Gong Yang family. Two figures suddenly descended from the sky and landed in front of these people. Han Yueli said when he heard Gong Yang Li's words. The Gong Yang family is one of the martial arts families in the northern region. They're good at saber techniques. They don't have any relationship with the North Sea Academy, and they don't have any ill intentions. North Sea Academy? Are you from the North Sea Academy? The white-haired elder, Gong Yang Zong, asked. Many thanks to the two of you. Our Gong Yang family's people are about to arrive. As long as the two of you help us hold on for a while, we will be extremely grateful and will definitely reward you. Hold on for a while? Don't bother. It's just a few black iron crows. Yueli, I'll protect them. I'll be back soon. Chu Fengmian said casually. His body suddenly moved as he charged into the flock of black iron crows. Each of these black iron crows has a special black feather. This black feather is the black iron divine feather, a wondrous item in the world. With a bit of refinement, it will become a sharp sword. Now that there are so many black iron crows, it's perfect. If we kill them all, we will be able to form a sword formation. Chu Fengmian had always set up a restriction array in his cave mansion, but he lacked a sword array for killing. The black feather on these black iron crows was the best material to practice the sword. There were a total of 100,000 black iron crows. After killing them and obtaining their black feather, it would be enough to form a sword array. Where did this human come from? Die. The flock of black iron crows saw Chu Fengmian suddenly rush over. The demon god realm black iron crow had already gained sentience and crazily roared. Following his roar, countless black iron crows rushed towards Chu Fengmian at the same time. The hard black feather on their bodies was their strongest attack. If a saint was careless and was hit in a vital spot, he would be killed instantly. "You're courting death," Chu Fengmian said contemptuously. In his hand, the ancestral dragon supreme sword suddenly came out of the sheath. The moment it came out of the sheath, a dragon's roar shook the surrounding black iron crows and made them faint. As Chu Fengmian's sword moved, the hundreds of black iron crows in front of Chu Fengmian were all killed. Chapter 649. Who is this person? It's so easy to kill these black iron crows, Gong Yongli said in disbelief. His realm was the same as Chu Fengmian's. They were both at the limit of the divine power realm. However, when he killed these black iron crows, he only killed them one by one. The black feathers that covered the black iron crows had an extremely strong defensive ability. If the power was slightly dispersed, it was very likely that he wouldn't be able to kill them. But now, Chu Fengmian killed hundreds of black iron crows with a single sword strike as if he was chopping melons and vegetables. This kind of strength was completely beyond his imagination. Even the second elder, Gong Yongzong, looked at Chu Fengmian in shock. Chu Fengmian's killing method was something that even he couldn't do. However, these hundreds of black iron crows were simply a drop in the ocean compared to the other black iron crows. Chu Fengmian's killing seemed to have angered these black iron crows even more. Countless black iron crows crazily attacked. In all directions there was a black mass, and there was no end in sight. It was almost impossible to escape now. However, Chu Fengmian didn't have the intention to escape. These black iron crows were all the best materials to refine a sword array. How could Chu Fengmian let them go? Suddenly, Chu Fengmian moved his left hand and grabbed the black iron crows that were killed by Chu Fengmian. The black feathers on them were all grabbed by Chu Fengmian. The iron feathers on each black iron crow were condensed by Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy and turned into black spiritual swords. In an instant, hundreds of black spiritual swords appeared in Chu Fengmian's hand. Go! Chu Fengmian moved his palm, and those black spiritual swords were released in an instant. Every spiritual sword was roaring and crazily fighting with the black iron crows in the air. These hundreds of black spiritual swords seemed to have comprehended Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship. Sword light flashed and the black iron crows around Chu Fengmian were all killed. In particular, once these black iron crows were killed, the black iron feathers on their bodies would be directly grabbed by Chu Fengmian and refined into spiritual sword. The number of black spiritual swords around Chu Fengmian increased. Countless spiritual swords formed a sword array and chased after Chu Fengmian. It no longer looked like Chu Fengmian was being attacked by the black iron crows. Instead, it looked like Chu Fengmian was slaughtering them. When did such a powerful figure appear in the North Sea Academy? This kind of strength was enough to be compared with the core disciples of the Northern Mang Academy. Especially the martial skill that he used, there was a bit of the aura of the Dragon Clan. Could it be Long Weiyang? However, Long Weiyang doesn't understand. This person's swordsmanship is extremely high. Gong Yongli thought to himself as he looked at Chu Fengmian. In his heart, he also let out a sigh of relief. At the very least, with Chu Fengmian around, they could be considered to have escaped from danger. On the other side, Chu Fengmian had already killed countless black iron crows. He had killed more than 10,000 of them. The number of black spiritual swords around him was also more than 10,000. As soon as these spiritual swords were unleashed, it was enough to kill countless black iron crows. Chu Fengmian was deep in the black iron crows. Almost every time he attacked, it was enough to kill hundreds and thousands of black iron crows. Damn it! Damn it! Kill! Kill! The black iron crows that had reached the demon god realm seemed to have been infuriated by Chu Fengmian's actions. They roared crazily. As they roared, the black iron crows suddenly gathered their strength. In an instant, the demon god realm black iron crows' bodies suddenly expanded and became many times bigger. It was the black iron crows that had gathered all of their power together. Although most of these black iron crows did not have intelligence, they knew the combination attack technique that came from their bloodline. The power of tens of thousands of black iron crows was simply shocking. Hiss! The sky was filled with black feathers as they attacked Chu Fengmian at the same time. With the demon god realm black iron crow as the leader, all the black iron crows burst out their full strength and attacked Chu Fengmian at the same time. Do you think you can contend against me just because you know some combination attack technique? The corner of Chu Fengmian's mouth curled into a contemptuous smile. With a thought, the tens of thousands of black spiritual swords were all condensed under the control of his mind. In front of Chu Fengmian, they turned into an incomparably huge sword array. This sword array did not look like a half-finished product that had yet to be condensed. There were countless black spiritual swords in groups of 7, forming the array eyes. Suddenly, an extremely exquisite sword array was condensed. Although the power of this sword array was not as strong as some of the great defensive arrays of the great sects, the various exquisite aspects of it surpassed those great defensive arrays of the great sects. Chu Fengmian had been practicing swordsmanship all his life in his previous life. The power of this sword array was to demonstrate the strength of the person who set it up. Although the sword array that Chu Fengmian had set up was only a half-finished product, it still had a mysterious and powerful power. In this sword array, there was also the 9 realms sword technique that Chu Fengmian had comprehended, the pinnacle of sword principle. Destroy! Chu Fengmian shouted with a clear voice. The sword array formed by the tens of thousands of black spiritual swords suddenly collided with the countless black feathers in the sky. With a loud bang, the black feathers were directly shattered. The sword array that Chu Fengmian had condensed had perfectly demonstrated his swordsmanship. Die, all of you! Chu Fengmian activated his swordsmanship to break the countless black feathers. Now, he activated his power again. Suddenly, the tens of thousands of black spiritual swords separated and began to kill the black iron crows in a frenzy. The demon god realm black iron crow was the first to be killed. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and caught all the black iron crow's black iron crow in his hand. After being refined by Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy, it immediately turned into the most dazzling black spiritual sword. The power of this black spiritual sword was already close to the heaven grade. Then, Chu Fengmian took out the Sikong Daluo sword from his spatial ring. It was meaningless for Chu Fengmian to obtain the Sikong Daluo sword. It was better to refine it and integrate it into Chu Fengmian's sword array. The two swords immediately began to fuse together with Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy. When they became one, the black spiritual sword transformed into a heaven-grade spiritual sword. With a wave of Chu Fengmian's hand, the black spiritual sword fell into the sword array and became the core of the sword array. Chapter 650. As soon as the black spiritual swords entered the sword formation, the power of the sword formation instantly increased by 10 times. The most important part of a sword formation was the core of the formation. The sword formation that Chu Fengmian had set up previously lacked the core. Once the core was there, the power of the sword formation would increase by 10 times. Great! The power of this sword formation is enough to surpass most of the heaven-grade spiritual weapons. It's also a good method to use against the enemy. Chu Fengmian was delighted. The stronger the sword formation was, the happier he would be. After all, this was the first time Chu Fengmian had condensed a sword formation. This sword formation is called Black Mysterious. Chu Fengmian shouted and moved his mind. The countless black spiritual swords on the sword formation all moved in an instant. Sword edge after sword edge crazily slashed at the black iron crows. the leader of the Black Iron Crows, the Black Iron Crow with the strength of a demon god, was killed by Chu Fengmian. The flock of Black Iron Crows suddenly lost their leader. Facing Chu Fengmian's attack, they all wanted to escape. Humph! Chu Fengmian snorted. Each of these Black Iron Crows represented a spiritual sword in the sword formation. The more spiritual swords there were, the more powerful the black mysterious sword formation that Chu Fengmian condensed would be. How could he let these Black Iron Crows go? As Chu Fengmian moved his mind, tens of thousands of black spiritual swords danced in the air and intertwined with each other. The sword formation suddenly became incomparably huge. All of the Black Iron Crows were trapped in the sword formation by Chu Fengmian. All of you die. Chu Fengmian moved his mind and countless black spiritual swords began to madly strangle the crows. Countless Black Iron Crows were about to fall at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. This huge flock of Black Iron Crows was almost powerless under Chu Fengmian's sword. This kind of strength, seeing Chu Fengmian crazily slaughtering the Black Iron Crows, Gong Yangli was simply shocked. This flock of Black Iron Crows was enough to force the three of them to flee. But now, these Black Iron Crows were actually so weak in the hands of Chu Fengmian. Even if these crows wanted to escape, they couldn't escape from Chu Fengmian's hands. The sword formation that Chu Fengmian had just condensed was incomparably powerful. It was much more powerful than the innumerable formations that he had seen before. It was even more powerful than the mountain-guarding grand array of the Gongyang family. Is this really a divine force realm cultivator? That woman, Gong Yangkai, was also incomparably shocked. She couldn't believe it. The two of them watched helplessly as Chu Fengmian wielded his spiritual sword and slaughtered the flock of Black Iron Crows. In less than an hour, all of the Black Iron Crows were killed by Chu Fengmian's sword array. At Chu Fengmian's side, there were no less than 100,000 black spiritual swords, all of which were guarding Chu Fengmian. His black profound sword formation was finally completed. If Chu Fengmian's black mysterious sword array could only be considered a treasured sword that had yet to be unsheathed, then this black mysterious sword array had truly been unsheathed. The terrifying sword edge emitted from it was extremely frightening to look at. The white-haired old man, Gong Yangzong's face changed. The moment he sensed the sword edge, he felt fear. Even if he went all out, he still couldn't break Chu Fengmian's sword formation. Seeing all of the Black Iron Crows being slaughtered, the three men from the Gongyang family felt as if they had just survived a calamity. Only then did they feel relieved. If Chu Fengmian hadn't appeared, they would have been buried in the Black Iron Crows' mouths. "Thank you, Your Excellency." The white-haired old man, Gong Yangzong, stood up and bowed. "The two of you are disciples of the Beimang Academy?" Han Yueli asked calmly. "Yes, I am Han Yueli. This is Chu Fengmian. We are both disciples of the Beimang Academy." Chu Fengmian? Han Yueli? Gong Yangzong didn't have any impression of Chu Fengmian's name. However, when he heard the name Han Yueli, he suddenly thought of something. Miss Han is the disciple of Ancestor Isley? Han Yueli had passed the Thousand Lightning Emperor Tribulation during the Life and Death Tribulation. The news had already been spread by the Beimang Academy. Gong Yangzong immediately recognized Han Yueli's identity. Thousand Lightning Emperor Tribulation. In the entire North region, it was a once-in-a-century occurrence. Those who could pass the Thousand Lightning Emperor Tribulation were all geniuses among geniuses. As for Chu Fengmian, although he had passed the even more terrifying Thousand Lightning Emperor Tribulation, no one in the North region knew who had passed it. Therefore, there wasn't much discussion about it. The two of you should be heading to the Martial Monarch City to participate in the Martial Battle Conference. Gong Yangzong glanced at Chu Fengmian and didn't ask anything else. As for Chu Fengmian's name, although he hadn't heard of it before, since he was on the same level as Han Yueli and had a close relationship, it was obvious that their status and strength weren't far apart. It was very likely that he was the disciple of the ancestor of Beimang's sacred region, so Gong Yangzong didn't ask too much. Our Gong Yang family has received the news and should be rushing over from the martial monarch city. The two of you have saved us, so our Gong Yang family will definitely give you a big gift to thank you. Why don't we head to the martial monarch city together? All right. Chu Fengmian nodded. In any case, his and Han Yueli's destination was also the martial monarch city. Since that was the case, there was no harm in traveling together. Although it was an unintentional move, he had saved these people from the Gong Yang family. However, it was natural for him to receive some benefits for saving them. All right, Li'er Kair, let's go. Gong Yangzong spoke, and the group turned into streaks of light, flying towards the north of the North region. Along the way, they didn't encounter any danger. Their journey was smooth and unimpeded. Their group activated streaks of light and swaggered through the streets, but not many people dared to stop them. Even the people from the Earth Demon sect didn't dare to intercept them. After all, the aura of 5 life and death realm experts was close to their level. Even if they were from the Earth Demon sect, they could only take a detour. Everyone flew for another hour or so. Suddenly, a few rays of light flew over at a high speed in front of them. When these streaks of light saw Chu Fengmian's group, they hurriedly reduced their speed and approached. There were more than 10 people in this group, and each of them had a sharp blade intent. These people were obviously from the Gong Yang family. They're here. Seeing this group of people, the 3 people from the Gong Yang family were delighted. Chapter 651. The disciples of the Geong family all stopped and came over. Among them, a young man was leading the group. This young man had a terrifying saber intent on his body. Apparently, he was an expert who had walked very far on the path of saber intent. This young man had already passed the life and death tribulation. His true strength had already surpassed Long Weiyang, Lu Hua, and the others. Behind him, there were 7 or 8 young men of the same age. However, their strength was not as strong as the leading young man. However, each of them was extremely monstrous. They were almost comparable to Luo Zhanhan, and were even close to the strength of the Northern Mang Sacred Region's seed disciples. At the end of the group were 2 old men. Of these 2 old men, the stronger one had already reached the peak of the life and death realm, which was almost the same as the Sikong family's ancestor, Sikong Jingsheng. The other old man was slightly weaker, but also had the strength of a high-level life and death realm expert. The Geong family's strength was not weak. Second elder, are you all right? The leading young man walked out and sized up Chu Fengmian. After seeing Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli's realms, he did not pay much attention to them. Han Yueli had just reached the life and death realm, while Chu Fengmian was only at the peak of the divine power realm. This kind of realm was not worthy of his attention. Brother Fan, we're fine. Geong Li was the first to speak. Geong Fan. Hearing Geong Li's words, Han Yueli's expression changed slightly. This Geong Fan is also a figure on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region. He's ranked 28th on the list, which is much higher than Sikong Hong. How much stronger is he compared to Sikong Hong? Chu Fengmian looked at Geong Fan and sized him up. Geong Fan's realm should be around the 3rd level of the life and death realm. However, 4 geniuses on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region, their strength could not be differentiated by realms. At least, Chu Fengmian could feel that Geong Fan's strength was at least at the high level of the life and death realm. As for whether he could contend against people at the peak of the life and death realm, Chu Fengmian was not sure. However, he would definitely not be defeated by ordinary high-level life and death realm expert. Have you ever heard of me? Upon hearing that Han Yueli had recognized him, Gong Yangfan couldn't help but look a little proud. To be able to recognize someone just by hearing their name, one had to at least be extremely famous in the northern region. I've heard of it, Han Yueli said casually. He was too lazy to answer Gong Yangfan's question. When Gong Yangfan saw Han Yueli, his eyes were filled with greed. Innate divine body. Chu Fengmian clearly saw this greed, which made his eyes turn cold. The innate divine body was a huge treasure. Without strength, the innate divine body would be a disaster instead of an opportunity. Brother Fan, it was these two from the Northern Mang Academy who saved us, allowing us to survive the attack of the Black Iron Crows. They saved you from the Black Iron Crows? When Gong Yangfan heard this, he couldn't help but glance at Chu Fengmian. When he saw the spiritual sword in Chu Fengmian's hand, his eyes flickered. Heaven-grade spiritual weapon. Heaven-grade spiritual weapon and innate divine body. Where did these two people come from? Just Han Yueli's innate divine body was enough to shock countless people. Who would have thought that the spiritual sword in Chu Fengmian's hand was actually a heaven-grade spiritual weapon? Their Gong Yang family only had one heaven-grade spiritual weapon, and it had been passed down since ancient times. This is a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. What a treasure! This sword is even stronger than our Gong Yang family's Gale Blade. Not only Gong Yangfan, but the other disciples of the Gong Yang family also noticed the ancestral Dragon Supreme sword in Chu Fengmian's hand. Their eyes flickered, and no one knew what they were thinking. So the two of you are disciples from the Northern Mang Academy. This time, you have saved our Gong Yang family. Please come to our residence for a chat. Our Gong Yang family will also treat the two of you well. Gong Yangfan suddenly spoke. What do the two of you think? When Gong Yangfan spoke, his eyes flickered. There's no need to treat us well. The two of us still have matters to attend to, so we'll take our leave first. The disciples of the Gong Yang family had murderous looks in their eyes, and Chu Fengmian naturally noticed it. If they continued to stay here, they would only be stirring up trouble. Chu Fengmian spoke directly and gave Han Yueli a look. The two of them intended to leave immediately. Stop! A disciple of the Gong Yang family suddenly stood out and blocked Chu Fengmian's path. He stood in front of Chu Fengmian. Why? The young lord of our Gong Yang family has invited you. Are the two of you not going to give him face? That's right. No one dares to not give face to the people invited by our Gong Yang family. Please reconsider. Another disciple of the Gong Yang family suddenly stood out and spoke coldly. Their eyes were filled with greed. Their eyes did not leave the ancestral Dragon Supreme sword in Chu Fengmian's hand and Han Yueli's body. The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became tense. Gong Yangli and Gong Yangkai seemed to have understood something. They looked at Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli, but did not say a word. They also understood why these people wanted to stop Chu Fengmian and Gong Yangkai. The innate divine body and the heaven-grade spiritual artifact. These were two moving treasures that everyone wanted. Although the Gong Yang family was known as a martial family, they only had one heaven-grade spiritual artifact. As for the innate divine body, they did not even have one. If they could get their hands on these two things, the power of the Gong Yang family would be strengthened instantly. Although their current actions were repaying kindness with enmity, it was nothing in front of the family. In this wilderness, even if they killed someone, no one would know. Why? Do you still want to force them? Is this how the Gong Yang family treats their guests? Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. He was kind enough to save them, but he did not expect that the Gong Yang family would repay kindness with enmity. Instead, they brought him such a big trouble. Kind people would be bullied. It seemed that Chu Fengmian was kind enough to save them, but they thought that he was easy to bully. Looking at the current situation, it was almost impossible for them to have a good ending. Of course not. We only want to ask the two of you to go to the Gong Yang family to verify something. Since young Master Chu wants to leave, we will not stop you. Gong Yangfan slowly said. How about this? Chapter 652. The sword in your hand seems to be very similar to a spiritual sword of our family. Why don't you let me take a look at it? Gong Yangfan said with a smile. I guarantee with the reputation of the Gongyang family that as long as it is clear, the two of you can leave if you want to. A sinister smile appeared on Gong Yangfan's face. The surrounding disciples of the Gongyang family also gathered around, surrounding Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli in the middle. Waves of spiritual energy began to be released, sealing off the surrounding space. Kid, don't think about struggling. Even if you want to escape in front of us, it's impossible. Another disciple of the Gongyang family said coldly. Looking at the actions of these people, Chu Fengmian knew that these people were eyeing the ancestral dragon supreme sword in his hand. However, this was not something that could be settled just by handing over the ancestral dragon supreme sword. With the actions of these disciples of the Gongyang family, even if he handed over the ancestral dragon supreme sword, it would not be settled. They would only silence him. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had never surrendered obediently after being threatened. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered as if he was thinking about something. After a long while, his face revealed a hint of fear. He waved his hand and threw the ancestral dragon supreme sword towards Gong Yangfan. Humph! Seeing Chu Fengmian's action, Gong Yangfan revealed a disdainful smile. His eyes were full of mockery. He picked up the ancestral dragon's supreme sword and moved his palm. The two words, Gong Yang, suddenly appeared on the ancestral dragon's supreme sword. Indeed, this sword is the spiritual sword of our Gongyang family. Gong Yangfan raised the sword in his hand and looked coldly at Chu Fengmian. Sir, please give us an explanation. What explanation? Brother Fan, don't talk nonsense with this person. Just take him down. He stole the spiritual sword of our Gongyang family, which is a great crime. Everyone, let's suppress him together. A disciple of the Gongyang family suddenly said. With a wave of his hand, countless spiritual energy suddenly blasted towards Chu Fengmian. Not only him, but even the other disciples of the Gongyang family beside him acted together. Countless spiritual energy sealed off the surrounding space, making it impossible for Chu Fengmian to escape. Ungrateful, biting the hand that feeds you. Is the Gongyang family a group of people like that? Chu Fengmian sneered. The Gongyang family was considered a martial arts family in the northern region. Who would have thought that they were actually such a person? Not only did he fail to be ungrateful, he even wanted to bite the hand that fed him and turn around to deal with Chu Fengmian. I saved you out of the kindness of my heart, but I didn't expect that you would dare to deal with me. If it wasn't for me, all of you would have died in the mouths of those black iron crows. Chu Fengmian glanced over and saw that even the three people he had just saved were now gathering their spiritual energy to deal with him. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but sneer. Brat, don't blame us for being ruthless. You can only blame yourself for being stupid, Gong Yangli said with a cold smile. You want to save us, but you just want a favor from our Gongyang family. It's just a deal, not a favor. Gong Yangli's expression changed so quickly. He was simply a villain. Brat, blame yourself for being stupid. If you didn't hand over the sword, perhaps we wouldn't have been able to deal with you. I didn't expect you to hand over the sword directly. Gong Yangfan looked at Chu Fengmian and laughed. There is no one else in this wilderness. If we kill you, no one will know that it was done by the Gongyang family. They will only think that it was done by the Earth Demon sect. After Gong Yangfan finished speaking, he looked at Han Yueli with a pair of greedy eyes. As for you, the profound cold body, I didn't expect that I would encounter such a fortuitous encounter. The heavens are really helping me. Let me kill this brat first, then I will deal with you properly. Is that so? Since this is the wilderness and no one knows, I'll just kill all of you. Chu Fengmian's eyes coldly swept across the disciples of the Gongyang family. A group of scourges, you deserve to die. I will use your blood to refine my sword array. Boom! Suddenly, a total of 100,000 black spiritual swords appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. It was the sword array that he had formed. This sword array had just been formed and had not killed anyone yet. Now, Chu Fengmian wanted to use the blood of the disciples of the Gongyang family to refine his sword array. Not good, quickly kill him. This person's sword array is extremely powerful. The second elder, Gong Yangzong, suddenly said. He had seen it with his own eyes. When Chu Fengmian killed those black iron crows, he relied on this sword array. The strength of this sword array was deeply engraved in his mind. What a powerful sword array! It is even stronger than our Gongyang family's defensive array. Good, after killing this person, this sword array will also belong to us. When Gong Yangfan saw the appearance of the sword array, his face turned solemn. He could also see the strength of this sword array, especially the black spiritual sword in the eye of the array. It was actually a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. One person could actually possess 2 heaven-grade spiritual weapons. This was simply overflowing with wealth. 3,000 blade edges. Holding the ancestral dragon supreme sword, Gong Yangfan suddenly slashed at Chu Fengmian, using the sword as a blade. Seeing this scene, Chu Fengmian sneered in his heart. This ancestral dragon supreme sword was not something that anyone could use. Moreover, this ancestral dragon supreme sword had already submitted to Chu Fengmian's ancient battle dragon bloodline. Right now, the only person who could use this ancestral dragon supreme sword was Chu Fengmian. Roar! A dragon's roar suddenly echoed from the ancestral dragon supreme sword. The moment the dragon's roar was heard, the ancestral dragon's roar echoed. As soon as the dragon roar resounded, the ancestral dragon supreme sword in Gong Yangfan's hand suddenly changed into the appearance of a real ancient battle dragon and bombarded Gong Yangfan. Puff! Gong Yangfan seemed to have not expected that the ancestral dragon supreme sword would actually submit to Chu Fengmian. In an instant, he was hit in the chest by the recoil, spurting out a mouthful of blood. Clearly, he was heavily injured. However, this Gong Yangfan did not die, which was somewhat beyond Chu Fengmian's expectations. Even a high-level life and death realm expert would die if hit by the recoil of this move. Gong Yangfan was actually only heavily injured. It seemed like this Gong Yangfan had some strength to be able to rank higher than Sikong Hong on the list of top 100 talents of the North region. However, this kind of strength was meaningless in front of Chu Fengmian. Return. Chu Fengmian's palm moved, and the ancestral dragon supreme sword flew back to Chu Fengmian's hand. When the sword returned, Chu Fengmian's aura was completely different from before. Chapter 653. As a sword cultivator, the moment Chu Fengmian held the spiritual sword, his temperament became his true temperament. The ancestral dragon supreme sword returned, and Chu Fengmian's aura underwent a drastic change. All of this was seen by the disciples of the Gaong family. Kill! The 2 elders of the Gaong family could no longer sit still. They also understood that they had encountered a tough opponent this time. They didn't expect Chu Fengmian's strength to be this strong. Even Gaong Fan was heavily injured. Die! The great elder, whose strength had reached the peak of life and death realm, suddenly moved and appeared behind Chu Fengmian. He actually chose to launch a sneak attack to kill Chu Fengmian. In his hand was a long cyan blade, which was also a heaven-grade spirit tool. It was the Gaong family's most precious treasure, the Gaong blade. In a flash, the great elder suddenly slashed out with his blade. This slash was enough to split into 10,000 blades. It was already close to the stage of Sword Dao. However, the moment this blade was about to reach Chu Fengmian's body, the corner of Chu Fengmian's mouth revealed a somewhat strange smile. Suddenly, countless rays of light appeared behind his back and turned into dragon scales. The 10,000 blades only created a few sparks when they hit the dragon scales. They didn't even injure Chu Fengmian's body. You dare to launch a sneak attack with such strength? Chu Fengmian glanced behind him. With a thought, the ancient battle dragon's blood essence frantically condensed and turned into a huge battle dragon claw in the air. It suddenly fell and heavily smashed onto the great elder's body. The great elder spat out countless mouthfuls of blood. His body was directly slapped to death by Chu Fengmian's claw. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and the Geong blade, along with the blood essence of the Great Elder, were all collected by Chu Fengmian. In just one move, the Geong family's Great Elder died in Chu Fengmian's hands. The other disciples of the Geong family were stunned at first. Then, they seized this opportunity and bombarded Chu Fengmian with countless martial skills. Hiss! At this moment, a sword beam suddenly pierced through the surroundings. This sword beam was ice blue in color. It was Han Yueli. These disciples of the Gongyang family were so ungrateful that they repaid kindness with enmity. This caused her heart to burn with rage. Along with the movement of her sword, the 3 disciples of the Gongyang family were directly beheaded, leaving behind 3 ice sculptures. Not good. Originally, Chu Fengmian was already a peerless, ferocious person. Who would have thought that Han Yueli, who stood beside Chu Fengmian, was actually not below Chu Fengmian in strength? Half of the disciples of the Gongyang family had been killed or injured. Most of the disciples of the Gongyang family no longer had any fighting spirit left on their faces. All they wanted to do was to escape. Sword. However, the countless sword lights were much faster than the escaping light of the disciples of the Gongyang family. With a thought from Chu Fengmian, the power of the sword array was completely activated. Instantly, the surroundings were surrounded by countless black spiritual swords. There was no way for the disciples of the Gongyang family to escape. This time, Chu Fengmian's killing intent was truly triggered. Chu Fengmian's character had always been one that knew how to repay kindness. He clearly distinguished between gratitude and grudges. What he despised the most was this kind of ungrateful villain. In Chu Fengmian's heart, these disciples of the Gongyang family had already been sentenced to death. None of them should even think about leaving alive. The disciples present were the elites of the Gongyang family. In order to participate in the martial competition, their blood essence was the best material to refine the sword array. After refining their blood essence, Chu Fengmian's sword array could be considered as a true blood-soaked blade. These people must all die. Kill! As Chu Fengmian shouted the word kill, the sword array seemed to have sensed the anger in Chu Fengmian's heart. Under the siege of countless black spiritual swords, the disciples of the Gongyang family were beheaded one by one. Damn it! How are you a person of the Northern Sea Academy? You're a devil! Looking at the countless disciples of the Gongyang family being beheaded, Gongyang Kai furiously roared. Our Gongyang family will not let you off. You talk too much nonsense. Chu Fengmian curled his lips. With a thought, he directly activated the power of the sword array and beheaded Gongyang Kai. Such an ungrateful person still had the nerve to call Chu Fengmian a devil. As for revenge, more than half of the experts of the Gongyang family had been beheaded by Chu Fengmian. If the Gongyang family dared to find trouble with Chu Fengmian wouldn't mind making the Gongyang family disappear from the northern region. Young Master Chu, I'm willing to submit to you. Please spare my life. I'm willing to be a slave and be loyal to you forever. Gongyang Li no longer had the appearance of a villain who was intoxicated with success. He knelt on the ground and trembled madly, begging for mercy. Submit to me? You're not worthy. Chu Fengmian glanced at Gongyang Li and activated the sword array to behead Gongyang Li directly. A villain who repaid kindness with enmity still wanted to beg for mercy? This kind of person wasn't qualified to submit to Chu Fengmian. A series of screams were heard continuously. About a minute later, the screams gradually disappeared. The disciples of the Gongyang family who were present were all beheaded. Their blood essence was also integrated into the sword array by Chu Fengmian, causing the power of the sword array to be awakened. The most important thing for a sword array was killing. Now, the blood essence was enough to stimulate the killing aura of the sword array. This long wind blade was a good spiritual weapon. Chu Fengmian played with the long wind blade in his hand. Suddenly, he waved his hand and the long wind blade fell into the sword array. Under Chu Fengmian's power, it immediately shattered. It turned into hundreds of thousands of tiny fragments and integrated into all the black spiritual sword. Although only a small fragment of each black spiritual sword was integrated into it, it was still a fragment of a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. It was just enough for them to evolve. The power of these black spiritual swords had now reached the level of a profound-grade spiritual weapon. Compared to before, it was much stronger. However, it still hadn't reached the upper limit. As long as Chu Fengmian continued to integrate countless spiritual weapons, these black spiritual swords could still be upgraded to an earth-grade or even a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. If it reached this step, it would be truly invincible. Hundreds of thousands of heaven-grade spiritual swords moving at the same time to form a sword array. This kind of terrifying power was probably unimaginable. However, this was only in Chu Fengmian's imagination. He didn't know how many spiritual weapons were needed to upgrade these black spiritual swords to an earth-grade spiritual weapon. As for a heaven-grade spiritual weapon, unless Chu Fengmian was willing to integrate an extreme immortal weapon, the chances were slim. Chapter 654. Encountering the people of Gongyang family this time could only be considered as an accident. Chu Fengmian had unintentionally saved them, but they repaid his kindness with enmity. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian's strength was sufficient to kill these disciples of Gongyang family. Otherwise, if he was just a little bit weaker, he would already be a dead man. There were countless martial arts families in the northern region. They might seem righteous, but no one knew what kind of people they were behind the scenes. Even the 7 great sects were glamorous, but they had once besieged the master of Sword Dao in order to obtain an ancient Sword Dao book. Killing these people is really letting them off too easily, Han Yueli said hatefully from the side. Han Yueli also hated these despicable people who repaid kindness with enmity. Killing them like this was letting them off too easily. No matter, we don't have time to tangle with these despicable people. Let's hurry to Martial King City first. Let's go. Chu Fengmian stood up and leaped into the sky, turning into a streak of light and flying toward Martial King City. Gongyang family can be considered a famous martial arts family in the northern region. There should be a lot of wealth in their spatial rings. Chu Fengmian took out the spatial rings while flying, taking away all the wealth inside. As for the spirit tools, Chu Fengmian integrated them into the sword array, increasing its power. 2 streaks of light streaked across the sky and arrived at the northern part of the northern region. There was an incomparably huge city near the seaside, Martial King City. As they approached Martial King City, Chu Fengmian observed that there were many streaks of light like him in the surroundings. These people were also here to participate in the Martial King City's martial competition. The moment Chu Fengmian noticed them, these people were also sizing up Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli. However, the majority of their attention was on Han Yueli. Life and death realm and innate godly body were already eye-catching enough. In this martial competition, everyone was an enemy. Many people looked at Han Yueli as if they were facing a great enemy. However, Han Yueli didn't care. She had the profound cold body and was already used to this kind of gaze. When she first went to the northern Mang sacred region, there were many seed disciples who were jealous of Han Yueli's talent and wanted to teach her a lesson. However, Han Yueli changed all of them and established her prestige in the northern Mang sacred region. In the face of enmity, all he had to do was to defeat the other party. Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli swaggered and landed in front of the city gate. The martial royal city had a total of 3 gates. The east gate and the west gate were the side gates, while the south gate was the real entrance. Of the martial artists who came to participate in this martial arts conference, which one of them was not a proud son of heaven? Naturally, there was no reason for anyone to take the side door. All of them came to the front of the south gate. In an instant, there was an endless stream of horses and carriages in front of the front gate. Countless cultivators rushed towards the martial imperial city from all directions. Among these people, There were many cultivators who didn't come to participate in the martial arts conference. They just came to watch this grand event that was held once every 3 years. In the previous martial arts conferences, there were many dark horses that rose up. Many of them had become the upper echelons of various major forces and became important figures in the northern region. There were also many people who wanted to see what kind of people were born in this year's martial arts conference. We're here to participate in the martial arts conference. There's no need to line up in front of the gate. We can just fly in. Hanweli said. They came to participate in the martial arts conference and naturally didn't need to line up to enter. The line in front of the south gate might not be enough to enter even if they waited for a day and a night. Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli's escape light arrived in front of the martial royal city. They didn't land and directly flew into the martial royal city. Who are these two people? Why are they so arrogant? A cultivator below said with some dissatisfaction when he saw Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli directly fly in. They didn't even line up and directly entered? Idiot, they're obviously here to participate in the martial arts conference. Otherwise, who would dare to trespass into the martial royal city? Another cultivator beside him said with some envy. When will I be qualified to participate in the martial arts conference? Humph, only those who are close to the list of top 100 talents in the northern region can participate in this martial arts conference. You won't be able to do it in your lifetime. One of the venerables said coldly. Such discussions didn't stop. Countless cultivators were discussing who would be the champion of this year's martial arts conference, and who would suddenly appear and become a dark horse. As soon as he entered the martial royal city, Chu Fengmian saw at a glance that there were more than 100,000 cultivators. These cultivators were almost all the geniuses and experts in the northern region. Most of them were just here to watch the fun and weren't qualified to participate. Those who were qualified to participate in the martial arts conference each year were only about 1,000 people. However, it was not easy to get into the top 10 from these 1,000 people. One had to be at least on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region, or even those at the top of the list of top 100 talents, to be able to achieve this. Of course, there were indeed special dark horses in the past years. In the last martial arts conference, there was an Earth Demon sect disciple named Merciless Tyrant. He went from being unknown and didn't even have a place on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region to the third place. Later, he entered the returning ruins heaven and had a great adventure. Now, he had reached the high level of the life and death realm. His strength was enough to defeat those at the peak of the life and death realm. He had become a big shot in the Earth Demon sect. His fame and the treasures in the returning ruins heaven stimulated countless geniuses in the northern region to participate in the martial arts conference. Even many genius disciples from hidden forces came to participate. The martial arts conference was the most lively event in the northern region in the past 3 years. Halt! Just as Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli flew into the martial royal city, two figures flew over and looked at Chu Fengmian. You two are here to participate in the martial arts conference. Do you have any evidence? Yes. Chu Fengmian didn't waste his breath. 2 metal plates appeared in his empty ring with the words, Martial King, engraved on them. So you two are from the Northern Sea Academy. Please come in. The two cultivators glanced at each other and said respectfully before letting him pass. Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli went straight in. There are quite a lot of people here this time. Chu Fengmian swept his gaze around and found many figures among them. He seemed to have seen them before in the Northern Sea Sanctuary. The leader of the king's party, Lu Hua, was among them. There were also many core disciples of the Northern Sea Sanctuary. Chapter 655. In the martial arts conference, only those who had ranked in the top 10 in the previous martial arts conference and had entered the returning ruins heaven were allowed to participate. The remaining warriors were qualified to participate. Therefore, many warriors did not come to fight for the top 10. Instead, they came to hone their strength at the martial arts tournament. Every battle in the martial arts conference was a real battle of life and death. Being able to participate once was a great training for one's strength. For example, these core disciples of the Beimang Academy had always participated in the martial arts conference but had never fought for a place in the top 10. This time, they still came to participate. In addition to these core disciples of the Beimang Academy, Chu Fengmian also noticed that in another area, there was also a group of warriors gathered together. These people were all dressed in blood-red clothes and exuded a demonic aura. Chu Fengmian recognized them at a glance. These warriors were all disciples of the Earth Demon sect. As the only force in the northern region that could compete with the Beimang Academy, the Earth Demon sect was extremely powerful. Moreover, because the battles in the Earth Demon sect were much crueler than those in the Beimang Academy, the strength of the disciples was even stronger. The biggest dark horse in the previous martial arts conference, Merciless Tyrant, was a disciple of the Earth Demon sect. Among these disciples of the Earth Demon sect, the strongest one among them attracted Chu Fengmian's attention. This was an extremely young-looking youth. However, his expression was always extremely cold, causing others to not dare to approach him. Although he looked young, the spiritual power in this teenager was definitely not weak. Chu Fengmian even felt that this person's strength was not inferior to that of the Xikong family's patriarch, Xikong Jingsheng. This kind of strength would make him a top expert in the Beimang Academy. Chu Fengmian did not expect that there was such a person in the Earth Demon sect, especially since this person's realm was at the limit of the divine power realm and had not passed the great tribulation of life and death. After passing the great tribulation of life and death, this person's strength would become much more terrifying. This is the top disciple of the Earth Demon sect, the Cold-Faced Demon King. He ranks second on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. Han Yueli looked at the young teenager and said, "This is the Cold-Faced Demon King?" After hearing Han Yueli's words, Chu Fengmian also looked at the young man. Chu Fengmian had heard of the Cold-Faced Devil Monarch before. He was an all-powerful figure in the northern region. Family Su, one of the martial arts families in the northern region, was single-handedly destroyed by the Cold-Faced Demon Monarch. The family Su was a family that was on equal footing with the Xikong family, the Gongyang family, and other martial arts families, but it was destroyed by the Cold-Faced Demon Monarch alone. Even the old ancestor of the family Su, who had reached the peak of life and death realm, was killed by him. This battle made the Cold-Faced Demon Emperor famous, and he was ranked second on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. Look, that's the Cold-Faced Demon Monarch. Just as the rumors say, cold and emotionless. This person's strength is simply monstrous. He's one of the most likely people to win the first place in this martial competition. He's almost locked in a place in the top 10 this time. The Venerables also saw the existence of the Cold-Faced Demon Monarch. Almost every warrior who participated in this martial competition saw the Cold-Faced Demon Monarch as a formidable enemy. After all, in the martial competition, whoever was unlucky enough to meet the Cold-Faced Demon Monarch would almost certainly lose. In addition to the warriors of the Earth Demon sect, Chu Fengmian also saw many people gathered, some of whom were disciples of martial arts families. For example, disciples of the Kanglin family, Feng family, and so on. There were also some disciples of second-rate forces. Although these second-rate forces couldn't compare to the North Mang Academy and the Earth Demon sect, these two behemoths, they were still able to nurture a few powerhouses by themselves. In fact, most of the warriors on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region were not from these two forces. Many of them were from other forces and sections. Yi Tianjun didn't come? Chu Fengmian glanced around and said with a little surprise. Chu Fengmian had indeed not seen Yi Tianjun, but Yi Tianjun had the chaotic divine body, one of the innate divine bodies. He could recognize the chaotic energy in his body at a glance. Chu Fengmian glanced around and almost did not encounter such chaotic energy. He did not even see a disciple of the Saint Party. This also made Chu Fengmian feel a little strange. The Saint Party was the largest force in the Beimang Academy, and there were many experts in it. There was no reason for the disciples of the Saint Party not to participate in this martial competition. Yi Tianjun will definitely come, Han Yueli said calmly. Yi Tianjuan's current realm was at the limit of the divine power realm, and he had been there for a long time. It was not that Yi Tianjun could not pass the life and death tribulation. With his current strength, it was easy for him to attract the life and death tribulation. Just like Chu Fengmian, he could attract the life and death tribulation almost instantly if he wanted to. It was just that Chu Fengmian was accumulating. He wanted to get a fortuitous encounter and accumulate enough foundation to prepare for the life and death tribulation. Yi Tianjun had the same idea as Chu Fengmian. The returning ruins heaven was a place with countless fortuitous encounters. This time, Yi Tianjun had no reason not to come. Yi Tianjuan's strength. What is his position on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region? Chu Fengmian asked. Chu Fengmian did not know much about the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. Yi Tianjun was definitely the first in the Beimang sacred region. But Chu Fengmian was not very clear about his position in the entire northern region. Yi Tianjun is ranked third on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region, Han Yueli said. But this is his ranking before he got the fortuitous encounter. Now that Yi Tianjun has obtained the inheritance of Lord Rui's cave residence, his strength will probably be even stronger. Third place, Chu Fengmian was slightly surprised by this ranking. He had expected the cold-faced demon monarch to take first place. Chu Fengmian thought that Yi Tianjun would be the first on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. He did not expect that there would be someone else. Boom! Just as they were talking, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the distance in front of the south gate of the Martial King city. The surrounding space was torn apart, and countless figures walked out from it. Each and every one of these people contained an extremely exquisite chaotic power. The sacred faction. The sacred faction is here. The gazes of countless people also turned to look at him. This group of people was from the sacred faction. At a glance, there were hundreds of them. Chapter 656. A group of disciples of the sacred faction tore the space apart and arrived at the martial emperor city. Among the Saint faction disciples, Chu Fengmian saw many familiar figures that he had seen in Beimang sacred region. Many of the core disciples of Beimang Academy were standing among them. These core disciples had all chosen to submit to Yi Tianjun. The core disciples of Beimang sacred region had the qualifications to compete for the position of the next principal of Beimang Academy. Now they had all obediently submitted to Yi Tianjun. It was enough to see how terrifying Yi Tianjuan's strength was. Among the countless Saint faction disciples, at the center of the crowd, there was a young man who was like the moon surrounded by stars. This young man wore luxurious clothes and had a faint smile on his face. He looked like a noble young master. Chu Fengmian recognized him at a glance. This person was the number one of Beimang Academy, Yi Tianjun. Chaotic divine body, it really is the chaotic divine body. Chu Fengmian swept a glance at Yi Tianjun and confirmed that this young man was Yi Tianjun. The chaotic energy on his body was absolutely impossible to imitate. Only Yi Tianjun could possess such power. The moment Chu Fengmian looked at Yi Tianjuan's line of sight also suddenly looked over. This line of sight was sizing up Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli with a sneer. Especially when he looked at Han Yueli, the greed in his eyes could not be concealed. This gaze was provocative, especially when he looked at Chu Fengmian. Yi Tianjuan's eyes were clearly filled with killing intent. Chu Fengmian had killed many Saint faction disciples and even 3 elders. He had followed the Saint faction to the point where he would not rest until one of them was dead. Yi Tianjuan's eyes were now filled with killing intent. However, when their gazes met, they both withdrew their gazes in the next instant. Before the martial battle grand meeting, all conflicts were meaningless. Yi Tianjuan's strength is so strong. Although they had only met for a short while, Chu Fengmian could tell that Yi Tianjun was worthy of being the #1 genius of Beimang Academy. Yi Tianjuan's strength was probably not below the peak of life and death realm. Moreover, Chu Fengmian could tell Yi Tianjun still had a lot of strength hidden. In terms of strength, he was not inferior to the #1 of Earth Demon Sect, Cold Demon Lord. In this year's martial competition, he was one of the top 10 candidates without any suspense. Chu Fengmian, Han Yueli. Sure enough, the two of them have also come to participate in this martial competition. Yi Tianjun glanced at Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli with a sneer. This was his first time Yi Tianjuan's name was Chu Fengmian. Yi had heard of Chu Fengmian, ordinary person. When Yi Tianjun first heard of Chu Fengmian was still a cultivator who hadn't even stepped into the divine power realm. In Yi Tianjuan's eyes, Chu Fengmian was an ant-like existence, so he didn't pay much attention to him. At that time, he only sent the saints to deal with Chu Fengmian. He did not expect Chu Fengmian to resolve the crisis time after time, and his strength had soared. Yi Tianjun was surprised that Chu Fengmian had grown to such a level. He regretted not killing Chu Fengmian when he was still young. The current Chu Fengmian had already grown to the point where he was a great threat. He was able to kill Long Weiyang and defeat Lu Hua and Lu Quebec. Chu Fengmian's strength had already been proven. Sacred Lord, do you want us to deal with that kid? A martialist standing beside Yi Tianjun said coldly when he noticed the change in Yi Tianjuan's expression. This kid doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He dares to stand with the woman that Sacred Lord fancied and participate in the martial competition. It is said that he has obtained the inheritance of Beimang Sage. Why don't we take the initiative to kill him? This venerable was also a core disciple of Beimang's sacred region. He looked at Chu Fengmian with murderous intent. Chu Fengmian had obtained the inheritance of Beimang Sage. This news had spread throughout the entire Beimang Academy. The disciples of other forces in the northern region might not know about it, but the disciples of Beimang Academy knew about it clearly. This kind of fortuitous encounter made them extremely jealous. They could not wait to kill Chu Fengmian. This is martial monarch city. We can't be too ostentatious. Yi Tianjun shook his head and said, in any case, when the time comes for the martial competition, there will be countless opportunities to kill him and let him live for a while longer. Those two people are the new students of Beimang Academy. The woman has the innate divine body and the profound frost body. It is said that she triggered the 1,000 thunderbolts Emperor Tribulation when she went through the life and death tribulation. Many venerable ones in the surroundings also noticed the existence of Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli at the same time. Most of them were looking at Han Yueli. Han Yueli's reputation was much greater than Chu Fengmian's. The innate divine body and the 1,000 thunderbolts Emperor Tribulation made Han Yueli's name known to almost everyone in the northern region. He was known as the super genius of Beimang Academy in the past 1,000 years and was comparable to Yi Tianjun. Han Yueli did not care in the face of different gazes. He just whispered to Chu Fengmian beside him. There are still a few days before the martial competition begins. Not all the experts have arrived. We can also find a place to have a good rest. Okay. Chu Fengmian nodded. Although martial monarch city was now filled with countless venerable ones, not all of them had arrived. At least Chu Fengmian did not have the chance to see the #1 on Beimang Sage's list of top 100 talents. Chu Fengmian had already heard the name of the #1 on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region, Feng Wuxin. Feng Wuxin was extremely mysterious. He came from the Feng family, a martial arts family in the northern region. The power of the Feng family was originally very close to that of the Xikong family and the Gongyang family. Although they were quite powerful, they were far inferior to the two giants, Beimang Academy and Earth Demon Sect. However, Feng Wuxin had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. This Feng Wuxin was a figure who had appeared out of nowhere a year ago. At the age of 20, he had already reached the 6th level of Life and Death Realm, stepping into the high levels of Life and Death Realm. His strength was even more frightening. It was said that he had escaped from a life-breaking realm expert who had surpassed life-breaking realm and had only suffered some injuries. There was only one person who could safely survive a life-breaking realm expert. Because of this, Feng Wuxin had stepped into the first place on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. His position was unshakable. Chapter 657. He had escaped from a life-shattering expert. Now, Chu Fengmian was confident that he could survive against a life-shattering expert. However, this was because he had cultivated the ancient Dragon King body. Chu Fengmian's body was originally extremely tough. In addition to the recovery ability of Chu Fengmian's bloodline, as long as he wasn't instantly killed, Chu Fengmian would be able to survive. His vitality far surpassed that of ordinary warriors, which was why he was so confident. However, Feng Wuxin was different. Feng Wuxin's strength was enough to contend against a life-shattering expert. That was why he had escaped. From this point of view, Feng Wuxin was even more terrifying. Especially Feng Wuxin, who did not even have a special bloodline or an innate divine body. His strength was all based on his strength. Now, Chu Fengmian also wanted to meet the number 1 on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. He wanted to see what kind of person Feng Wuxin was. Just when Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli were still pondering, a few figures suddenly walked over. These figures came from the direction where the Northern Mang Academy had gathered. They came together. There were 5 people in total, 3 men and 2 women. They were all core disciples of Beimang Academy. Gu Aihan and Lu Qingping, the 2 core disciples who had seen Chu Fengmian fight around the life and death ring, were also in the group. However, the leader of this group of people was a woman. She had smooth skin and a perfect figure. There was always a faint smile on her face. However, Chu Fengmian knew that this woman was obviously not as kind as she looked. She had a name in Beimang's sacred region, Blood Rakshasa Yanbai. It was said that her smooth skin and jade bones were all bathed in the blood of warriors. "What brings you all here?" Chu Fengmian asked calmly when he saw the 5 people coming over. These people obviously did not come just to see Chu Fengmian. They must have their own purpose. These 5 people were not weak. They were all core disciples of Beimang Academy and were all on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. Chu Fengmian was not afraid of these people. He was even confident that he could win if they fought. However, the other party had the advantage in numbers. Furthermore, they were in the martial king city. Before the martial competition, all personal fights were meaningless. That was why Chu Fengmian spoke so cautiously. "It's nothing much. I just want to invite the 2 of you to give up on this martial competition." Before the woman could open her mouth, Gu Aihan, who was beside her, coldly spoke. "In the martial competition, it is very likely that we will encounter each other and weaken the Academy's strength for nothing. Both of you are newcomers. You should give up on this year's martial arts conference. Come and participate in the next one. At that time, we will make way for you to pass and make things easier for you." Although Gu Aihan's words seemed to be persuasion, it was no different from an order. His face was filled with arrogance, and he appeared to be high and mighty. They were well aware of Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli's strength. However, at that moment the 5 of them were joining hand. 5 against 2, they were not afraid in the slightest. If they worked together, even a life-saving expert wouldn't be a match for them. Therefore, dealing with Chu Fengmian was a piece of cake. The other core disciple, Lu Qingping, spoke out. I ask the two of you to consider it. For the sake of the Academy, I also ask the two of you to hand over your quotas and give up on this year's martial battle assembly. For the sake of the Academy? Withdraw? Hand over their quotas? Chu Fengmian's face turned cold when he heard their words. As expected, they did not come with good intentions. From the looks of it, these core disciples had teamed up to force some of the Northern Sea Academy's experts to withdraw. This way, their chances of entering the top 10 would be much higher. Chu Fengmian and Han Yuli, these two new stars that had just risen, in their eyes, they were absolute calamities. Therefore, these people came to negotiate with Chu Fengmian to force him to hand over his quotas. However, let alone 5 core disciples, even 5 supreme elders would be wishful thinking if they wanted to force Chu Fengmian to hand over his quotas. In your dreams. Chu Fengmian indifferently spat out 2 words from his mouth. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, the faces of the 5 core disciples turned cold. They did not expect Chu Fengmian to be so unyielding. He was not perfunctory and was so resolute in front of the 5 of them, not giving them any face. Among them, Gu Ayahan spoke out without any trace of politeness. Brat, impudent. We're here to advise you with good intentions, but you don't know how to appreciate our kindness. Since you've provoked us, don't even think about entering the top 10 in this martial competition. Is that so? Who do you think you are to come and force me? Chu Fengmian's face instantly turned cold. All of you scram. Chu Fengmian spoke this time, using a lot of spiritual energy in his words. The word scram instantly shook the 5 of them, causing them to continuously retreat. Their eyes were filled with fighting intent. The atmosphere was heavy, as if a battle would break out in an instant. Wait. At this moment, the leading girl, Shui Luosha Yen Bai, suddenly spoke. The two of you, could it be that you don't plan to give us face? Give up this martial competition, and we'll guarantee that you'll enter the top 10 in the next one. There's no need. Chu Fengmian coldly spoke. He, Chu Fengmian, had not fallen to the point of needing charity from others. Moreover, if he gave up this martial competition, he would have to wait for 3 years. 3 years was indeed not a long time for cultivators. Perhaps many cultivators would agree to this condition, but it did not represent Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian could not afford to waste 3 years. Chu Fengmian's identity might be known by the 7 great sects at any time. At that time, Chu Fengmian would have to face endless pursuit. He had to increase his strength before this to the point where he could fight against the 7 great sections. Therefore, Chu Fengmian could not afford to wait for 3 years, nor did he need to wait. Chu Fengmian's face was cold as he spoke word by word. If you don't leave, you'll end up like Long Weiyang. Arrogant. Gu Ayahan suddenly spoke out in anger. If they ended up like Long Weiyang, wouldn't that mean that they would die? They had personally witnessed how Chu Fengmian killed Long Weiyang on the life and death arena. Stop. Yen Bai waved her hand and stopped Gu Ayahan. She glanced at Chu Fengmian and calmly spoke. Let's go. Chapter 658. Chu Fengmian, you have to be careful. Yen Bai's character is extremely cruel. You made her lose face this time, so she will definitely use some means to deal with you in this martial competition. Han Yueli, who was at the side, suddenly explained when she saw Chu Fengmian's disapproving look. This martial competition does indeed use the rules of the arena battles to determine the victor. However, before the arena battle, there will be a chaotic battle. Every 10 people will fight in a chaotic battle. Only the final winner will be able to enter the arena battle. The warriors who will be assigned to the arena battle will most likely be related to them. In the chaotic battle, if 9 people join forces to attack one person, no matter how strong they are, there is a possibility that they will be eliminated. Usually, this is the time to play trick. Han Yueli explained. The arena battle was indeed very fair, and it was all about strength. However, the chaotic battle at the beginning was not that fair. After the groups, as long as Yen Bai was willing, she could bribe Chu Fengmian's opponents. At that time, it would be 9 against 1, besieging Chu Fengmian. No matter how strong or how monstrous one's talent was, when faced with 9 geniuses besieging one, there was a high possibility that one would be defeated. Many of the experts from the previous batches were targeted and fell in this chaotic battle. Now, with Yan Bai's character, she would definitely come to deal with Chu Fengmian since Chu Fengmian did not give her face. The best opportunity to deal with Chu Fengmian was in the arena battle. Although the martial imperial city was run by the major forces in the North region, the North Mang Academy, as the leader of the North region, naturally had a great influence. It wouldn't be difficult for these people to play tricks in the dark. If she dares to play tricks, it will be time for her to die. Chu Fengmian said calmly. He had many opponents. Yi Tianjun hated him to the extreme. Even if Yan Bai did not take action, Yi Tianjun would choose to deal with Chu Fengmian. There were many enemies, but he was not afraid. In the face of absolute strength, all schemes and tricks were meaningless. There were quite a lot of discussions like this. Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli sat at a corner of the square and closed their eyes to rest. In this square, there were countless warriors sitting and resting like Chu Fengmian. Before the martial battle conference, everyone wanted to be in perfect condition before participating in the martial battle conference's assessment. Time ticked by. More and more cultivators gathered in martial imperial city. Experts from various large sects, martial families, and hidden forces had all appeared. Basically, all the people on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region were present, except for Feng Wuxin, who ranked first on the list of top 100 talents. Boom. Several days later, the martial emperor city was filled with a hubbub of voices, as the martial competition was about to begin. A figure suddenly descended from the sky. This figure was tall and had a chiseled face. His expression was extremely calm. This sort of calmness was not an act. Instead, it was an expression of his true heart. It was an extremely calm personality. Feng Wuxin. Feng Wuxin has appeared. The gazes of the cultivators also turned to look at the man who had suddenly appeared. This person was Feng Wuxin, who ranked first on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region. He finally appeared at the last moment. Chu Fengmian also sized up Feng Wuxin. At first glance, Feng Wuxin looked like an ordinary person, but his attitude was neither sad nor happy. However, deep down, Chu Fengmian knew that this sort of mentality was the most terrifying. Although Feng Wuxin's mentality hadn't been tempered by himself, this sort of mentality was still absolutely perfect. An impeccable mentality was not inferior to a genius with an innate divine body. This person hid very well. Feng Wuxin seemed to glance at Chu Fengmian when he saw Chu Fengmian's gaze. Although it was only for a moment, Chu Fengmian knew that Feng Wuxin had already noticed his presence. This kind of sensitivity was somewhat beyond Chu Fengmian's expectations. Rumble. Almost at the same time, a loud sound suddenly resounded. At the back of the plaza, a huge bronze door suddenly opened. Behind the bronze door was the venue of the Martial Battle Conference. Although the Martial Arts Conference was held in Martial Royal City, it was not held in Martial Royal City. It was held in another space. Martial Royal City was just a gate. Now, the gate leading to the venue had opened. Let's go. Let's go in. It was not the first time that countless cultivators had come here to participate in the martial arts conference. When they saw the gate open, they rushed in one after another. Countless people were trying to squeeze into it. Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli also stood up at the same time and rushed into the palace with a flash of their bodies. After entering the gate, Chu Fengmian suddenly felt the world spinning in front of him. This was the change to enter another space. This gate was actually a teleportation array. In the next moment, a completely different scene appeared in front of Chu Fengmian. This was a huge fighting arena. There were hundreds of fighting rings in it, and each ring was made of white jade. This was no ordinary white jade. How could ordinary white jade withstand so many experts fighting within it? Every single piece of white jade was engraved with extremely sturdy seals. Chu Fengmian felt that with his current strength, it would not be easy to destroy even one piece of white jade. This used to be the martial arts practice field of the 9 regions' great sects in the ancient era. Han Yueli looked around and sighed. This place was later discovered by a venerated martial artist of the northern region. This martial arts practice field can withstand the battles of countless experts. Therefore, the martial arts conference is held here. Martial Royal City was also built because of this. Chu Fengmian nodded when he heard Han Yueli's words. This was indeed the most suitable place for the martial arts conference. It was simply a perfect place. This martial arts conference will be held by our sky-penetrating pavilion. An old man was standing on the highest platform. He was an old man with unfathomable strength. At a glance, this person's strength was probably even stronger than Elder Bing Li's. He was also an expert who had surpassed the life and death realm. Even on the life and death steps, he had an extremely terrifying strength. Chapter 659. In the past, the martial arts conference had been held by the various sects in the northern region in turn. This time, it was the Sky-Reaching Pavilion's turn. The Sky-Reaching Pavilion was a colossus in the northern region. It was extremely wealthy, and its influence could be found in any corner of the northern region, including the Void Sea and the Primal Chaos continent. Although the Sky-Reaching Pavilion did not cultivate its own martial artists, its various influences were intricate and complicated. Only the Beimang Academy and the Earth Demon sect were strong enough to compete with the Sky-Reaching Pavilion, but they would not offend the Sky-Reaching Pavilion easily. After all, the Sky-Reaching Pavilion occupied most of the business in the northern region, and some of its elders were extremely powerful. Since the Sky-Reaching Pavilion was in charge of this year's martial arts conference, no one would be dissatisfied. 6 hours passed. Almost all of the practitioners outside the martial imperial city had entered. Currently, the surroundings of the martial arts arena were filled with people. At this time, the elder from the Sky-Reaching Pavilion suddenly stood up and said loudly, "This year's martial battle conference begins. The first round is a free-for-all. Now, a number will appear on each of your ID cards. You will be assigned to groups according to the number." The first round of the martial arts conference was a free-for-all. Thousands of people participated in the martial arts conference every year, but it was indeed troublesome to fight in an arena with thousands of people. Moreover, there were indeed some people who wanted to fish in troubled waters. The free-for-all in the first round was like the assessment of the Beimang Academy, where most of the people would be eliminated. Among these 10 people, only one could advance to the next round. In this way, most of the martial artists who were not strong enough would be eliminated. Chu Fengmian was not worried about this free-for-all. With his strength, it was absolutely no problem for him to pass this round. With his current strength, as long as he did not encounter the top 10 of the list of top 100 talents in the northern region, he would have no pressure to advance. The only thing that worried Chu Fengmian was that if he was assigned to the same group as Han Yueli, the situation would be terrible. Chu Fengmian's plan was to go to the ultimate ruin sky with Han Yueli. If they encountered each other in advance, one of them would be eliminated. Now, you will be assigned to the arena. Enter the arena according to the number on your ID card," said the old man from the Heaven Span Pavilion. Every warrior held a token tightly in their hands. This token was the symbol of their qualifications to participate in the martial arts conference. A number slowly appeared on the token in Chu Fengmian's hand. 77. There were a total of 100 arenas, which was just enough for all the cultivators present to fight together. Chu Fengmian looked at the number in his hand and glanced at the Han Yueli. The number on the Han Yueli was 3. This made Chu Fengmian heave a sigh of relief. At least he didn't need to encounter Han Yueli in a chaotic battle. "Everyone, enter the arena." Chu Fengmian had just let out a sigh of relief when an imposing voice suddenly sounded. Countless warriors in the arena moved their bodies and landed on the arena. Chu Fengmian glanced at Han Yueli and instructed, "Be careful. The same goes for you," Han Yueli said softly. The two of them suddenly separated and went to different arenas. Each arena had a number engraved on it. Chu Fengmian found the 77th arena at a glance and stood on it. Countless warriors walked up to the arena one after another. The groups gradually became clear. Yuan Ji, who is ranked 15th on the list of top 100 talents, is actually placed together with Yuan Hai, who is ranked 17th on the list of top 100 talents. One of the onlookers suddenly exclaimed. In the fourth arena, among the 10 people, 2 of them were actually ranked in the top 20 on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. This immediately attracted the attention of countless people. There were a total of 100 ranks on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. In the chaotic battle of the martial arts conference, it was very likely that they would encounter each other. However, it was extremely rare for the top 20 to meet each other, which immediately attracted the attention of countless people. This was the real beginning of the competition. It was a top-notch duel. Such a situation was not uncommon. Suddenly, there were countless exclamations, discussions, and quarrels around the arena. For a moment, there was a boiling cauldron of voices. Chu Fengmian's group did not have any experts, but there was a warrior ranked 41st on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. Chu Fengmian had seen him before. He was a core disciple from Beimang's sacred region, Gu Eahan. In addition to Gu Eahan, the other 8 people were all seed disciples of Beimang's sacred region. Everyone in the arena was actually from Beimang Academy. What's going on? It's actually 10 people from Beimang Academy. Beimang Academy is really unlucky this time. They actually started a civil war right from the start. Some of the spectators looked at the situation in the arena and many of them sighed. They did not feel that something was wrong. This kind of situation was rare. However, there were many disciples from Beimang Academy participating in the martial arts conference. It was not a big deal for them to be grouped together. However, Chu Fengmian knew that this was definitely not an accident. It seemed that he had provoked Yan Bai. This time, Yan Bai directly used her tricks to deal with Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian, enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. I didn't expect to meet you here. Gu Eahan pretended to be extremely surprised and said. However, there was only mockery in his tone. Now, Chu Fengmian knew that Gu Eahan was obviously doing this on purpose. The other 8 disciples of Beimang Academy all followed Gu Eahan's orders and immediately formed a formation. Obviously, they wanted to deal with Chu Fengmian together. Gu Eahan said with a laugh. It's your bad luck to meet us. Now get out of the arena obediently. Since we are all disciples of Beimang Academy, we won't kill you. Is that so? Then I'm sorry to disappoint you. You are the ones who are really unlucky to meet me. Chu Fengmian said disapprovingly, the corners of his mouth full of disdain. A group of ants. Even if you join forces, you are still ants. It seems that I haven't reminded you of the lesson of the Dragon Gang. It seems that you will end up like the Dragon Gang. The lesson of the Dragon Gang was the fall of Long Wei Yang. The experts of the Dragon Gang were all killed by Chu Fengmian alone. Now, the Dragon Gang only existed in name and was removed from the northern Mang sacred region. Shameless boasting, Gu Eahan shouted coldly. Since you don't want this opportunity and want to retreat, you will die in the arena. Chapter 660. Gu Eahan's spiritual energy suddenly burst out. This spiritual energy was also the extremely pure ice origin energy. Gu Eahan's strength was definitely not weak, since he was able to rank high on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region. He did not establish a force in Beimang's sacred region, but it did not mean that he was weak. On the contrary, Gu Eahan had already passed the life and death tribulation. In terms of strength, he had hidden it very well. Originally, everyone knew that he was only at the limit of the divine power realm. He was even stronger than Sikong Hong, Long Weiyang, and Lu Hua to be ranked at the limit of the divine power realm. They did not expect Gu Aohan to have hidden so much strength. All of a sudden, the power of the life and death realm erupted from his body. Gu Aohan had hidden it very well. Gu Aohan fully released the power of the life and death realm. His palm suddenly blasted toward Chu Fengmian, and the space in front of him began to freeze. Gu Aohan has actually reached the life and death realm and passed the life and death tribulation. Some of the onlookers were shocked when they saw Gu Aohan show his full strength. Gu Aohan could be considered a regular on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region, so everyone was familiar with him. Gu Aohan's position had always been around the middle because he was only at the limit of the divine power realm. Unexpectedly, Gu Aohan was now in the life and death realm. Warriors who had passed the life and death tribulation would have their strength increase crazily by several times, or even 10 times. With such strength, if he was on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region, he would be close to the top 20. Not only Gu Aohan, but the remaining 8 seed disciples of the Beimang Academy also attacked at the same time. These people were obviously in cahoot. The moment Gu Aohan attacked, he suddenly condensed his spiritual power and sealed the space around Chu Fengmian, leaving Chu Fengmian with no way to escape. This scene was like Chu Fengmian fighting against 9 people alone. If the 9 people joined forces, even the top 20 of the list of top 100 talents of the northern region would be defeated, not to mention Chu Fengmian, who was not even on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region. In the eyes of countless people, there was absolutely no suspense in this battle. Just as everyone was shaking their heads in pity. However, there was a sudden change in the arena. Facing Gu Aohan's palm, Chu Fengmian's mouth revealed a hint of disdain. With this kind of strength, even if they joined forces with others to deal with him, they would not be able to withstand a single blow. The ancient war dragon bloodline in Chu Fengmian's body was awakened. Immediately, the aura on Chu Fengmian's body began to rise. As Chu Fengmian waved his hand, the spiritual energy suddenly turned into a huge dragon claw and swept everything in the arena. Gu Aohan's palm was swept away. The disciples of the North Sea Academy were sent flying by this palm, and they spat out mouthfuls of blood. This scene caused countless people to widen their eyes. Gu Aohan and the 8 Northern Mang Academy disciples had joined forces to deal with Chu Fengmian, but Chu Fengmian had easily dealt with them. How is this possible? Gu Aohan's face changed drastically. The strength of this power was something he did not expect. Although he had seen Chu Fengmian in action before, he had only seen it from afar and had never experienced it up close. Now that he felt Chu Fengmian's strength, he finally understood what it meant to be strong. This was an unstoppable power. It was as if any power would be directly crushed in front of this power. I don't believe that you're that strong. Frozen Domain Great Palm. Just then, a cold spiritual energy suddenly erupted from Gu Aohan's body. The arena immediately turned into a cold region, with ice crystals everywhere. At the same time, countless chills gathered above Chu Fengmian's head. In the next moment, it condensed into a huge palm that fell from the sky and blasted towards Chu Fengmian. The remaining 8 Northern Mang Academy disciples had also gathered their spiritual energy and added all of their strength to the palm, causing the power of the palm to increase by several fold. Let's see how you're going to take this palm. Gu Aohan's face was ferocious as he madly roared. You're just an ant, and you dare to be so arrogant? Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed a cold killing intent. Since these people wanted to deal with Chu Fengmian in the arena, they had no intention of letting Chu Fengmian live. As long as one was in the arena, life and death were predestined. Since these people had come to die, Chu Fengmian would fulfill their wishes. Dragon! In the face of the huge icy palm that fell from the sky, Chu Fengmian suddenly moved his right hand and directly grabbed towards the air. Following his claw, an incomparably huge war dragon claw met it head-on. The two forces clashed, instantly shattering the ice palm. Die. Chu Fengmian indifferently spat out a single word. His battle dragon claw swept across the entire arena. Gu Aohan was the first to be sent flying. He spat out countless mouthfuls of blood. In the next moment, his body exploded, leaving behind a cloud of blood mist. Gu Aohan, one of the top figures on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region, was killed by Chu Fengmian's claw. The Northern Mang Academy disciples were the same. They were all killed by the War Dragon Claw. All of their blood chi was taken by Chu Fengmian and integrated into his sword formation. Countless onlookers were stunned when they saw that everyone in the arena had been killed in an instant. There were experts in the arena, but now, even Gu Aohan was not a match for Chu Fengmian's one move and was directly killed by Chu Fengmian. What kind of power is this? How can a warrior in the divine power realm have such strong power? And his bloodline is the dragon bloodline. Is there another Long Weiyang in the Northern Mang Academy? No, the power of this bloodline is even stronger than Long Weiyang's. One of the venerables exclaimed. He naturally could see that Chu Fengmian did not use any so-called skills at all. He did not even use any martial arts technique. He only relied on his extremely powerful strength. This strength was enough to sweep through everything. With a single claw, he killed everyone on the stage. Oh? Where did this guy come from? What powerful strength! Gu Aohan is actually dead. This guy is really ruthless. This guy should be the dark horse of the Northern Mang Academy. With such strength, he should be at least in the top 20 on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. In the other arenas, many winners and losers had already been decided. Several experts among them had noticed that Chu Fengmian had killed Gu Aohan. Chapter 661. Interesting. I don't know where this kid came from, but he's so powerful. Gu Aohan even got 8 disciples from the North Sea Academy to help him, but they were all killed. Below, in the area of the Earth Demon sect, a supreme being who had just killed everyone on the arena directly landed on the ground. He looked at Chu Fengmian and said thoughtfully, "This martial artist was the most powerful person in the Earth Demon sect, the cold-faced Demon King. This guy's aura seems familiar. I seem to have seen him in Dragon Emperor Yan's cave mansion." A martial artist beside the cold-faced Demon King looked over when he heard the cold-faced Demon King. "It's him." The way this martial artist looked at Chu Fengmian also changed slightly, revealing a bit of hatred. This kid killed our Earth Demon Sect's disciples, and he still dares to come to the martial arts conference? The cold-faced Demon King said coldly. "What's going on? Gui Yen, tell me." "Young master, this is the man who killed countless of our Earth Demon Sect's disciples in Dragon Emperor Yan's cave. Prince by Gu and Ghost Valley Kid died in his hand." The Earth Demon Sect disciple by the name of Gui Yen, who was standing beside the cold-faced demon monarch, suddenly spoke. At that time, his strength was not even enough to enter the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. However, he had a great adventure in Dragon Emperor Yan's cave mansion, and his strength soared. Even the undying demon Venerable and the other elders died in his hands. The fortunate encounter in the ancient Yen Dragon Monarch cave abode? His strength must have something to do with the ancient Yen Dragon Emperor's cave dwelling. The cold-faced Demon King nodded when he heard Gui Yan's words. He seemed to have understood where Chu Fengmian's strength came from. Among the 6 cave mansions in the Void Sea, Dragon Emperor Yen is the strongest. If this kid obtains Dragon Emperor Yan's inheritance, it will be troublesome. It's said that the Dragon Tribe's supreme treasure, the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword, is also in Dragon Emperor Yan's cave mansion. It seems to have fallen into this kid's hands. The cold-faced Demon King's eyes changed as he said coldly, "Inform all the Earth Demon Sect's disciples to kill him if they see him." We must get the ancestral Dragon Supreme's sword and Dragon Emperor Yan's treasure. Yes. Gui Yan chimed in. His figure moved and he left. After about 2 hours, most of the battles in the arena had ended and the winners and losers had been decided. This 10-people battle royale was only the first round. There were all sorts of people, so it was naturally very easy to determine the victor. The only ones who hadn't been separated were the 2 people on the 28th arena, Yuan Ji and Yuan Hai. The strength of these 2 people were on par with each other to begin with. Currently, the battle on the stage was between the 2 of them. Yuan Ji and Yuan Hai both used the saber. In terms of saber intent, they were extremely close. On the stage, there were countless saber lights and sword shadows, making it impossible to see clearly. In the arena, Yuan Ji's blade light suddenly burst forth with unparalleled power. The winner and loser of the last battle in the arena had been decided. Yuan Ji's strength was still stronger, but Chu Fengmian could see that. Yuan Ji's strength should be much stronger than Yuan Hai's, but he had been hiding it. He had no choice but to use his full strength at the last moment. Indeed, quite a number of dark horses have appeared in this year's martial competition. Chu Fengmian glanced at the crowd and whispered to himself. It seemed that the north region was full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. At least 4 or 5 people, who were not on the list of top 100 talents of the North region, had successfully made their way to the top. Among them, Buried Heaven, a disciple from the Hidden Heavens burial sect, had defeated the disciple who ranked 12th on the list of top 100 talents of the North region. Of course, Chu Fengmian was also one of the dark horses in this competition and had attracted a lot of attention. As for Han Yueli, the crowd was not too surprised. Everyone in the North region knew that Han Yueli had passed the Thousand Thunder Emperor tribulation. The strength she had displayed was also very normal. Chu Fengmian's strength has increased by another level. Is he hiding his strength, or has his strength improved so quickly? Seeing that Gu Ayahan was killed by Chu Fengmian, the faces of the core disciples of the Beimang Academy were extremely gloomy. In particular, Yan Bai's face was extremely gloomy, as if he could explode at any time. No matter what kind of talent he has or what kind of adventure he has had, this guy will definitely die. If you meet him, kill him at all costs. As long as you kill him, I will be responsible for all your losses. Moreover, I will give whoever kills him a heaven-grade spiritual weapon, Yan Bai said coldly. His words immediately caused those core disciples to seethe with excitement. Killing Chu Fengmian would give them a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. A heaven-grade spiritual weapon was extremely rare in the Northern Mang Academy. Only some of the best among the core disciples could possess one. A heaven-grade spiritual artifact was extremely attractive to countless life and death realm experts, not to mention core disciples like them. Kill. We must kill him. Heaven-grade spiritual weapon. Kill him and vent Senior Sister Yan Bai's anger. When I meet him, I will definitely kill him. The core disciples of the Beimang Academy spoke one after another. Even some of the disciples who had no enmity with Chu Fengmian had eyes full of killing intent, as if they had a blood feud with Chu Fengmian. Under the temptation of such wealth, these martial artists could do anything. Even if they were asked to kill their own friends, they would not show any mercy. Eyes full of killing intent looked at Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian did not care. With his character, he was not afraid of anything. Those who killed would be killed by others. Whoever dared to kill Chu Fengmian would kill them. Saint Lord, this person's strength is getting stronger and stronger. Another group of people spoke. These people were the disciples of the Saint faction. In this martial competition, there were no less than 20 disciples of the Saint faction who had passed the chaotic battle. Among the martial artists in the martial competition, no less than 1/5 of them were disciples of the Saint faction. From this, one could see how powerful the Saint faction was. In the Beimang Academy, the Saint faction could cover the sky with one hand. In this vast northern region, they were a colossus surpassing countless martial families. Humph, a newcomer can actually grow to this extent. This person obtained Dragon Emperor Yen Gu's cave and the inheritance of Saint Lord Beimang. Now that his strength has skyrocketed, he is actually so arrogant. Chapter 662. This time, it was finally Chu Fengmian's turn. Chu Fengmian's face did not show the slightest bit of nervousness. He glanced at the identity token that lit up, and with a leap, he stepped onto the stage. This was the first time Chu Fengmian had stepped into this arena. The moment he stepped in, he felt that this arena was different from others. The arena was the largest arena in the square. Chu Fengmian could feel the changes in his surroundings as soon as he stepped into it. The surrounding space suddenly began to change. The scene around Chu Fengmian also became a boundless chaos. Right now, there were several mysterious restrictions carved into the arena, causing the surroundings to change. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary arena, but inside, there was a world of its own. In this boundless primal chaos, no matter how strong the force was, it couldn't affect the outside world. No matter how strong a martialist was, they could still attack without any scruples. The opponent standing in front of Chu Fengmian was a man in red. The color of his red clothes shone like blood. The moment Chu Fengmian looked at him, the identity of this person appeared in his mind. Earth Demon Sect Luo Ning. This red clothes was the symbol of an Earth Demon Sect disciple. This person had already passed the life and death tribulation and reached LV1 life and death realm. He was ranked 34th on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region, just above Xikong Hong, whom Chu Fengmian had defeated before. Boy, I didn't expect to meet you. Luo Ning looked at Chu Fengmian with an extremely arrogant face. His eyes were sizing up Chu Fengmian, not taking him seriously at all. Brat, you're really unlucky to have met me. All of your fortuitous encounters will be destroyed in front of me. You'll definitely lose this time. Luo Ning looked at Chu Fengmian and sneered confidently. A little devil from the Earth Demon Sect can only be so eloquent at this time. Chu Fengmian looked at Luo Ning and shook his head. He didn't know what Luo Ning relied on to be so arrogant. Chu Fengmian said indifferently, "Make your move. If you don't, you won't have any chance." Arrogant. You are just an unknown boy. Do you really think you can do whatever you want with some adventures? In front of our Earth Demon Sect, your adventures are not worth mentioning at all. Luo Ning shouted angrily. A long saber suddenly came out from his back. Countless saber lights suddenly burst out. The moment it came out, the arena was filled with endless saber light. Let me tell you, this is the absolute severing saber skill of our Earth Demon Sect. It is your honor to die under this saber. Luo laughed loudly and suddenly, the long saber in his hand suddenly fell down. When the long saber fell down, all the surrounding saber lights gathered together, and gathered all the power gathered at one point directly slashed all the power of the saber lights out. Such a ferocious blade strike was indeed something that countless life and death experts might not be able to block in an instant. Was too fast. Chu Fengmian was still standing in the same place, motionless, as if he had no reaction at all. This battle had attracted the attention of countless surrounding warriors. Every single action was clearly seen by them. This was the first battle of Chu Fengmian's group of dark horses in the arena. Many disciples of the Earth Demon Sect were extremely cruel. Although they did not rank high on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region, it did not mean that they were weak. On the contrary, when these people fought with their lives, they were even far more powerful than the other sect's geniuses. The arena battle was a battle of life and death, not a competition of strength. Luo Ning did not rank high on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region, but some of the top 20 warriors on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region were extremely afraid of him. At the very least, this saber strike was absolutely stunning. If an ordinary cultivator could not react in time, they would have been chopped off. Luo Ning's strength has increased a lot. It seems that he was hiding his strength before, and finally showed it in this martial arts competition. The people of the Earth Demon sect are indeed very powerful in life and death battles. In the Earth Demon sect, life and death battles happen all the time. Which one of the Earth Demon sect's warriors is not stained with blood? They have experienced countless life and death battles. Although Chu Fengmian's strength is strong, he is still too young. I'm afraid that Chu Fengmian is going to lose this battle. His strength is indeed formidable, but his brute strength is not enough to deal with this kind of life and death battle. Look at his current appearance, he's going to be scared silly. This blade will end the battle. Countless warriors shook their heads when they saw that Chu Fengmian did not have any reaction until now. In their opinion, Chu Fengmian must have not experienced such a fierce life and death battle. After all, Chu Fengmian was just a newcomer who had just emerged. He only had his current strength because of some lucky encounters. Every warrior on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region had experienced countless life and death battles. Their rankings were obtained through countless life and death battles. Luo Ning was a member of the Earth Demon sect. This move was extremely fierce. Now that Chu Fengmian did not have any reaction, Chu Fengmian would either be killed or injured by this saber strike. Right at the moment when the crowd was discussing amongst themselves, countless people's eyes suddenly opened wide. Just as the blade was about to reach Chu Fengmian's chest, Chu Fengmian's hand moved. His palm directly grabbed the blade. With a grab, he actually managed to grab the blade in his hand. Even Luo Ning's expression suddenly became extremely sluggish, as if he could not understand the scene in front of him. His saber edge was unexpectedly caught by Chu Fengmian with his bare hand. The power of this saber edge was so strong that even an expert at the peak of the life and death realm would not dare to catch it with his bare hands. Only those big shots who had really transcended life and death could do this. He had never imagined that Chu Fengmian could actually catch his saber edge barehanded. Even his expression was very relaxed. Damn it! Luo Ning's expression became extremely ferocious. It seemed that he was really angry. Boy, very good. You have completely angered me. Now you have no other choice but to die. Only your blood can appease my anger. Luo Ning roared. Suddenly, Luo Ning's body began to tremble violently. His strength suddenly began to rise crazily. It increased by 10 times. At this moment, Luo Ning's strength increased by 10 times. Chapter 663. Luo Ning's strength was not below the high level of the life and death realm. Now, he suddenly burst out with 10 times the strength. His strength almost reached the peak of the life and death realm in an instant. This strength had reached the level of the top 20 of the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. The moment Luo Ning's strength burst out, he immediately pulled out his saber and chopped down in front of Chu Fengmian. Absolute sky fall. The strength and speed of this saber were 10 times stronger than before, especially when it was right in front of Chu Fengmian. Almost instantly, it chopped at Chu Fengmian's throat. The strength of this saber suddenly soared, but it could not escape Chu Fengmian's eyes. Chu Fengmian could see that this was the spiritual power that Luo Ning had been hiding in his body. This spiritual power was like the holy seed in the body of the Saint Society's disciples. It would not show up in normal times, but at the critical moment, it would burst out suddenly and make his strength soar by 10 times or even dozens of times. This was an absolutely desperate move. This saber could even kill someone at the peak of the life and death realm. It was definitely qualified to kill the top 20 of the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. Boy, go to hell! Luo Ning roared ferociously. The saber had already fallen. You can't even withstand a single blow. Do you really think you can kill me with such little tricks? Chu Fengmian said disdainfully. Facing this saber that was 10 times stronger than the previous one, Chu Fengmian's hand moved. A surge of spiritual power suddenly emerged and turned into a war dragon claw in front of Chu Fengmian. Suddenly, the claw was swung out. Boom! The moment the claw condensed, the surrounding space seemed to vibrate because of the power in it. It was as if the real ancient war dragon had attacked. The power of the claw instantly destroyed Luo Ning's blade. Luo Ning's blade was extremely weak in front of the war dragon's claw. It was broken upon contact. Ah! Not only was the saber shattered, but Luo Ning's body was also sent flying by the war dragon claw. The next moment, Luo Ning's body suddenly shattered. There was no one in front of Chu Fengmian. What was left was a cloud of blood qi, which was taken away by Chu Fengmian with a wave of his hand. In the arena, only Luo Ning's screams were left, echoing endlessly. This caused all the cultivators below to tremble in fear when they heard it. This person's strength, just how strong is he? Gu Aihan and Luo Ning couldn't block his claw. They were both killed. Extremely powerful strength. Some of the warriors exclaimed in shock. This power was simply too astonishing. Chu Fengmian's strength was due to this pure power. Luo Ning, who erupted with 10 times the power, was actually unable to block this claw. However, not everyone was optimistic about Chu Fengmian. This kid's strength is indeed not bad. However, his strength is merely his brute force. So what if his brute force is strong? When encountering a true expert, his brute force is meaningless. He killed an Earth Demon Sect's disciple with a single claw. This guy is too arrogant. He will be killed by the Earth Demon Sect sooner or later. Some warriors thought with jealousy. Damn this guy. Below, where the Earth Demon Sect's disciples gathered, many Earth Demon Sect's disciples were enraged when they saw Luo Ning being killed by Chu Fengmian. They wished they could go up and kill Chu Fengmian. However, this was the martial competition. No one could challenge the prestige of this place. Very well. Looks like this guy is tired of living. Demon Lord Ling Mian's face became extremely gloomy. With his character, he was furious when he saw Chu Fengmian being so arrogant. Especially when Chu Fengmian called him a little devil. It was a provocation to all the Earth Demon Sect's disciples. Kill him if you see him. Yes. All the Earth Demon Sect's disciples congratulated in unison. After killing Luo Ning, Chu Fengmian's body moved and descended from the arena. In this martial competition, the number of warriors who died in each competition was countless. Even many of the top 10 on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region died in this arena. Luo Ning's death obviously did not set off any waves. At most, Chu Fengmian's arrogance attracted some attention, but it was nothing. Speaking of arrogance, those who could come to this arena were all talented disciples of various sections. No one was not arrogant. With strength, one naturally had the right to be arrogant. Of course, if one was not strong enough to be arrogant, he would be courting death. Luo Ning was the best proof. The next battle was still ongoing. After Chu Fengmian's battle, the first round of battles was almost over. The next round was about to begin. The more battles one experienced, the stronger the experts one would meet. This was only the first round, so it was difficult to meet a real expert. Soon, the second round of battles began. In this round, Chu Fengmian was not surprised. However, the sudden appearance of the Dark Horse, Buried Heaven, made Chu Fengmian take a few more glances. Buried Heaven looked like an extremely gloomy young man. However, when facing his opponents, he defeated them with one move. What Chu Fengmian noticed was that Buried Heaven only used brute force when facing his opponents. He defeated them with one move with his strong spiritual power. He did not even use any of his cultivation skills. Chu Fengmian did not know what he was hiding. The deeper this kind of person hid, the more terrifying his strength would be. In Chu Fengmian's mind, Buried Heaven was also one of his strong opponents in this martial competition. He was comparable to the top of the top 100 talents, Feng Wuxin, the number 1 of the Beimang Academy Yi Tianjun, and the number 1 of the Earth Demon Sect, the number 1 of the Earth Demon Sect. The progress of the second round was not slow either. Chu Fengmian sat on the ground and observed every battle. In particular, there were many swordsmen in this martial competition. These swordsmen were countless geniuses in the northern region. Although their swordsmanship was far inferior to Chu Fengmian's, it was not necessarily without merit. For example, Chu Fengmian found some of his own insights to be extremely novel, so he learned and absorbed them. Chu Fengmian created the 9 realms swordsmanship to integrate the essence of the world's swordsmanship. Chu Fengmian saw through the essence of many of the battles between swordsmen. He directly absorbed the essence of their swordsmanship and integrated it into the 9 realms swordsmanship. He sat still and watched the battles. In fact, it was also a kind of cultivation that made his swordsmanship more powerful. Chapter 664. Luo Ning's strength was not below the high level of the life and death realm. Now, he suddenly burst out with 10 times the strength. His strength almost reached the peak of the life and death realm in an instant. This strength had reached the level of the top 20 of the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. The moment Luo Ning's strength burst out, he immediately pulled out his saber and chopped down in front of Chu Fengmian. Absolute sky fall. The strength and speed of this saber were 10 times stronger than before, especially when it was right in front of Chu Fengmian. Almost instantly, it chopped at Chu Fengmian's throat. The strength of this saber suddenly soared, but it could not escape Chu Fengmian's eyes. Chu Fengmian could see that this was the spiritual power that Luo Ning had been hiding in his body. This spiritual power was like the holy seed in the body of the Saint Society's disciples. It would not show up in normal times, but at the critical moment, it would burst out suddenly and make his strength soar by 10 times or even dozens of times. This was an absolutely desperate move. This saber could even kill someone at the peak of the life and death realm. It was definitely qualified to kill the top 20 of the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. Boy, go to hell! Luo Ning roared ferociously. The saber had already fallen. You can't even withstand a single blow. Do you really think you can kill me with such little tricks? Chu Fengmian said disdainfully. Facing this saber that was 10 times stronger than the previous one, Chu Fengmian's hand moved. A surge of spiritual power suddenly emerged and turned into a war dragon claw in front of Chu Fengmian. Suddenly, the claw was swung out. Boom! The moment the claw condensed, the surrounding space seemed to vibrate because of the power in it. It was as if the real ancient war dragon had attacked. The power of the claw instantly destroyed Luo Ning's blade. Luo Ning's blade was extremely weak in front of the war dragon's claw. It was broken upon contact. Ah! Not only was the saber shattered, but Luo Ning's body was also sent flying by the war dragon claw. The next moment, Luo Ning's body suddenly shattered. There was no one in front of Chu Fengmian. What was left was a cloud of blood qi, which was taken away by Chu Fengmian with a wave of his hand. On the arena, only Luo Ning's screams were left, echoing endlessly. This caused all the cultivators below to tremble in fear when they heard it. This person's strength, just how strong is he? Gu Ayahan and Luo Ning were not able to block his claw. They were both killed. Extremely powerful strength. Some of the warriors exclaimed in shock. This power was simply too astonishing. Chu Fengmian's strength was due to this pure power. Luo Ning, who erupted with 10 times the power, was actually unable to block this claw. However, not everyone was optimistic about Chu Fengmian. This kid's strength is indeed not bad. However, his strength is merely his brute force. So what if his brute force is strong? When encountering a true expert, his brute force is meaningless. He killed the Earth Demon Sect's disciple with a single claw. This guy is too arrogant. He'll be killed by the Earth Demon Sect sooner or later. Some warriors thought with jealousy. Damn this guy. Below, where the Earth Demon Sect's disciples gathered. Many of the Earth Demon Sect's disciples were furious when they saw Luo Ning being killed by Chu Fengmian. They couldn't wait to kill Chu Fengmian. However, this was the martial competition. No one was allowed to challenge the prestige of this place. Very well. Looks like this guy is tired of living. Demon Lord Ling Mian's face became extremely gloomy. With his character, he was furious when he saw Chu Fengmian being so arrogant. Especially when Chu Fengmian called him a little devil. It was a provocation to all the Earth Demon Sect's disciples. Kill him if you see him. Yes. All the Earth Demon Sect's disciples congratulated in unison. After killing Luoning, Chu Fengmian moved his body and descended from the arena. In this martial competition, the number of warriors who died in each competition was countless. Even many of the top 10 on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region died in this arena. Luoning's death obviously didn't cause any trouble. At most, Chu Fengmian's arrogance attracted some attention. Speaking of arrogance, those who could come to this arena were all talented disciples of various sections. No one was not arrogant. With strength, they naturally had the right to be arrogant. Of course, if they didn't have the strength to be arrogant, they would be courting death. Luoning was the best proof. The next battle was still ongoing. After Chu Fengmian's battle, the first round of battles was almost over. The next round was about to begin. The more battles one experienced, the stronger the experts one would meet. This was only the first round, so it was difficult to meet a real expert. Soon, the second round of battles began. In this round, Chu Fengmian wasn't too surprised. However, the sudden appearance of the dark horse, Buried Heaven, made Chu Fengmian take a few more glances at him. Buried Heaven looked like an extremely gloomy young man. However, when he faced his opponents, he defeated them with one move. What caught Chu Fengmian's attention was that Buried Heaven had only used brute force when he was fighting. He had defeated Buried Heaven in one move with his rich spiritual power. He didn't even use any of his cultivation skills. Chu Fengmian didn't know what he was hiding. This kind of person, the deeper he hid, the more terrifying his strength was. In Chu Fengmian's mind, Buried Heaven was also one of his strong opponents in this martial competition. He was comparable to the top 100 talents, Feng Wuxin, the number 1 of the Beimang Academy Yi Tianjun, and the number 1 of the Earth Demon Sect, the number 1 of the Earth Demon Sect. The progress of the second round was not slow either. Chu Fengmian sat on the ground and observed every battle. In particular, there were many swordsmen in this martial competition. These swordsmen were countless geniuses in the northern region. Although their swordsmanship was far inferior to Chu Fengmian's, it wasn't without merit. For example, Chu Fengmian found some of his own insights to be extremely novel. He learned and absorbed them. Chu Fengmian created the 9 realms swordsmanship to integrate the essence of the world's swordsmanship. Chu Fengmian saw through the essence of many battles between swordsmen. He directly absorbed the essence of their swordsmanship and integrated it into the 9 realms swordsmanship. He sat motionless and watched the battles. In fact, it was also a kind of cultivation that made his swordsmanship stronger and stronger. The previous 2 chapters were sent incorrectly. The last chapter was inexplicably not sent last night, causing the content to be wrong. I only noticed it now. It has been corrected. Those who subscribed before can read it again. It has been corrected. Chapter 665. Chu Fengmian's gains from the martial arts conference were far beyond his imagination. This was only the first round of the arena battles. Many sword cultivators had yet to use their full strength. Many of them also had their own trump cards in their swordsmanship. It seems that I have to participate in these arena battles more often in the future. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. Regardless of whether it was in the northern region or the entire 9 regions, there were countless arena battles like this. This kind of arena battle was the best opportunity to spar with the strong. Many warriors would participate, and participating in the arena battle was also the easiest way to make a name for oneself. Chu Fengmian was not very interested in this kind of arena battle before, so he did not participate in it. But now, Chu Fengmian wanted to create the 9 regions swordsmanship. He had to comprehend all the powerful swordsmanship in the 9 regions. This kind of arena battle was definitely the best opportunity for Chu Fengmian to face various experts. Chu Fengmian was constantly changing his 9 regions swordsmanship as he watched. His 9 regions swordsmanship was only in its embryonic form and had not been completely condensed. Everything was still accumulating. Chu Fengmian would integrate all kinds of mysterious swordsmanship into it. When the 9 regions swordsmanship was truly completed, it would be enough to become the most powerful swordsmanship in the world. The first round of the arena battle was soon over, and it was time for the second round. In the second round, Chu Fengmian's opponent was a disciple from a second-class sect, the Wind sect. He was ranked at most 50th on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. It was actually his limit to reach the second round. If he had encountered some weak opponents, he might have had a chance to go further. But obviously, he had no chance against Chu Fengmian. He was easily defeated by Chu Fengmian and was sent flying off the stage. Chu Fengmian did not hurt this person. He just defeated him easily. He had a clear distinction between good and evil. Chu Fengmian would only defeat this kind of enemy and would not hurt him. Han Yueli also encountered a weak opponent and was easily defeated in one move. However, in the next round there were 2 experts who appeared. They were Buried Heaven, who Chu Fengmian thought highly of, and the young master of the Kanglan family, who was ranked 4th on the list of top 100 talents in northern Mang. There was originally not much suspense in this battle. Buried Heaven could be considered the dark horse of this year's cohort. However, the person he met today was Kanglan Jing, one of the top 5 on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. No matter how strong the dark horse was, if he wanted to fight with the top 5 on the list of top 100 talents of the northern region, everyone knew the outcome. Buried Heaven was bound to lose. However, the battle that followed was rather unexpected. Buried Heaven fought with Kanglan Jing, and Buried Heaven defeated Kanglan Jing. In fact, he managed to accomplish this within 3 moves. This caused an uproar among the countless onlookers. Kanglan Jing was ranked 4th on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. Although there was a gap between him and Feng Wuxin, Yi Tianjun, and the cold-faced Devil Monarch, he was still second only to the 3 of them. Now that he had been defeated by Buried Heaven, who was unknown to the public, the crowd was in an uproar. The discussion about Buried Heaven far surpassed the discussion about Chu Fengmian. This person is so strong. Han Yueli looked at Buried Heaven and said slowly. Her expression changed slightly. Han Yueli was extremely confident that she could defeat Kanglan Jing when she faced him. However, Buried Heaven did it in 3 moves. Han Yueli asked herself whether she could do it even if she used all her strength. Buried Heaven could be said to be truly unknown. No one had heard of him at all. Now that he had appeared out of nowhere, he actually had such strength. I think I've seen Buried Heaven before, Chu Fengmian said thoughtfully as he watched Buried Heaven defeat Kanglan Jing. Chu Fengmian was not surprised by this outcome. He even felt that Buried Heaven was still hiding his strength. Buried Heaven had used a type of pure martial principle to defeat Kanglan Jing. However, Chu Fengmian could tell that this martial principle was just Buried Heaven's concealment. He was hiding his true strength. Especially when he was watching Buried Heaven's battle, Chu Fengmian sensed a sense of familiarity from his every move. With Chu Fengmian's spiritual consciousness, he had already achieved a photographic memory. This sense of familiarity was not accidental. However, Chu Fengmian could not figure out who Buried Heaven was at the moment. However, Chu Fengmian must have seen Buried Heaven before, or even fought him. This person should be from Wuxing Nation, Chu Fengmian said. What? Han Yueli said with some surprise when she heard Chu Fengmian's words. There's actually such a person in Wuxing Nation? Now that they had left Wuxing Nation and headed to the northern region, Han Yueli had already understood. Wuxing Nation was simply a small place that could not be more remote. Even an outer sect disciple from Beimang Academy could destroy it. It was already extremely surprising that Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli could appear in such a small place. Who would have thought that there would be a third person? That's right. Chu Fengmian nodded. The only people who could make him feel familiar and whom he had fought before were from Wuxing Nation. Forget it. We'll run into him sooner or later anyway. If we do, we must use all our strength, Chu Fengmian said. Since they were all here to participate in the martial arts conference, naturally, they would run into each other in the future. When the time came, they would know exactly who Buried Heaven was when they fought him. At least Chu Fengmian was confident that he could force Buried Heaven to show his true strength. Yes. Han Yueli also nodded with a serious expression. Buried Heaven was indeed a powerful enemy. Buried Heaven's defeat of Kanglin Jing was an interlude in the second round. Although this battle was shocking, the more the battle went on, the more exciting and earth-shattering the battles between the experts were. The third round soon began. In the first battle of the third round, the identity card in Chu Fengmian's hand lit up immediately. It's my turn, Chu Fengmian casually said. With a leap, he stepped onto the stage. This time, Chu Fengmian's opponent was no longer a weakling. He was at the 4th level of Life and Death Realm and was one of the top 10 on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region. He was a disciple of the Saint Party and one of the core disciples of Beimang Academy. He was ranked 9th on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region, Wu Ying. In the third round, Chu Fengmian encountered one of the top 10 disciples on the list of top 100 talents in the northern region, who was also from the Saint Party. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.